It's Friday, the 22nd of April, 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404, if you've just joined us. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. We're also streaming live on YouTube. The entire show now available on your YouTube channel. Now today we're asking you a question, and it relates to the overcrowded prisons that we have in the country, but specifically about the youth. What do you make of the alarming statistics of the number of youth in our prison system? That's the question. I'd like to get your experience and your thoughts on the matter on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on our Facebook page. You can let us know, and we'll read your comments a little bit later. Also today, a very busy news day. We'll have our reporter Mike Maringa standing by there, as you can see, in Limpopo, as well as a guest in Cape Town from NICRO that will be talking about the prison systems, and a number of guests here in studio as well that we'll be interviewing. So you have to stay tuned. It's a very busy news day. Let's take a look at your news headlines. President Jacob Zuma wraps up a week of talks with the other members of the Southern African Customs Union. Yesterday we were talking about brown fisher, and at the Brown Fisher Memorial Lecture, Mangaung Metro Mayor Thabo Manyoni told the audience that South Africans must stop being in denial about racism and face it head on. And very sad news for the music industry. One of my favorites, an autopsy of the late singer Prince, to be carried out today. Now those are all your headlines. It's going to be a purple day today, but coming right up in your sports news, before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening there. A very good morning to you, Kendall.
Elvis, good morning. We did wake up to the sad news that Prince has passed away. Really is sad news for all music fans. Now, good morning to you. Coming up in the sports, this is what's happening. It's round 9 of Super Rugby 2016, and the Sharks are up against it. They take on defending champions Highlanders in Dunedin this morning. 14-time Grand Slam champion powers his way into the Barcelona Open quarterfinals, beating compatriot Albert Montanes 6-2, 6-2. At least 2 people killed when part of a new cycle lane collapses into the ocean in the Olympic city of Rio de Janeiro. Right, it's now time for the news. Our top story for this morning's bulletin is President Jacob Zuma wraps up a week of talks with the other members of the Southern African Customs Union today. He arrived in Swaziland yesterday on the last stop of the tour, which included visits to Botswana and Namibia. Consultations are underway to determine a date for the President's visit to the 5th member of the Union, Lesotho.
Touching down at the Matapa International Airport in Swaziland, the tour is aimed at engaging one another on ideas that will make SAKU function better.
The establishment of some kind of a regional fund that will be able to fund cross-border projects, because one of the features of SAKU is that we haven't actually come together and funded any kind of development project that has any kind of relevance to more than one of us. If we've done it, it's only on a bilateral basis. It's never been through the institutions of SAKU. So those will be some of the proposals or suggestions of work plans that we will be putting forward.
Swaziland is one of the countries which relies heavily on SAKU for revenue. More than 50% of the country's national budget is made up of SAKU receipts.
We export goods to the Republic of South Africa, and we also import a lot of goods from our neighboring state. That is why we also have the customs union, because of the trade that exists between these two countries.
President Zuma will also meet Swazi King Mswati III. The Swaziland government is optimistic that ongoing discussions between SAKU member states will help improve trade relations. President Jacob Zuma will wrap up the SAKU tour in Lesotho. Mweli Maslela, SABC News, in Babane, Swaziland.
And in other news, 2 more respondents in the Vuwani Malamulele Municipal demarcation stalemate will take the stand and make their arguments before the Limpopo High Court in Polokwane today. The residents of Vuwani, through their advocate, have made an application to the High Court to reverse the Municipal Demarcation Board's decision to include their area in a new municipality. About 500 residents of Vuwani conducted a night vigil at the Polokwane Cricket Club in Limpopo last night. Yesterday, 9 residents were injured after police used rubber bullets to prevent the residents from entering the premises of the Limpopo High Court. Some of the people who spent the night in the open say they will try to negotiate with the police to allow them to picket outside the court. Now, as Elvis intimated a little earlier on, we're now joined by our reporter, Mike Maringa, who is at the Limpopo High Court in Polokwane. Mike, good morning, and we're hoping that you can give us some update of what's actually happening this morning.
Good morning to you and to our viewers at home. Yeah, it's indeed that the Vuwani residents had a night vigil. They slept at the Polokwane Cricket Club. It's about a kilometer from here, and that is where they are still at, waiting for the court to take a decision about the application that they made about them being incorporated into the new municipality. But to reflect on what happened yesterday, they were there, they were shot at with rubber bullets because they were growing impatient. They were placed far away from the High Court where things are happening. But that is not the only thing that is happening. When we woke up this morning, we realized that most of the streets that are leading to this High Court have been barricaded. Police are here in numbers to make sure that the Vuwani people then get anywhere closer to the High Court. But to reflect again on what happened yesterday, we had two respondents on this case. Today we are expecting the MEC for Coxstar in the province to come and answer to that. The Vuwani people have presented their case, and so is the demarcation board. But just to give you a brief of what transpired yesterday, I'm joined by Chief Bangiseni Masia, who's also part of the people who are complaining about their area being incorporated into the new municipality without a proper consultation. Chief Masia, what transpired yesterday in court? Are you still confident that you've got a case against the demarcation board?
Yes, of course, we are still confident that we've got a case. We are satisfied with the way things are moving. We can only celebrate the fact that we've been given a court platform to present ourselves, to present our story, to prove that whatever happened did not go according to what it's supposed to be. So we are still confident. The court is still proceeding. We think that the outcomes would be favorable to us. In fact, from the first day that we thought of a court process, it was based on our conviction that there is a case that can be won.
But your main gripe was that there was no proper consultation. What was the response of the demarcation board and the Department of Coxstar on that matter?
I wouldn't want to dwell much on the case that is still in process. That is still they could say it's still on. I may not be able to make comments on that so that I don't jeopardize whatever presentations are being made in court.
Let's talk about your people. We understand that 8 buses ferried people from Vuwani to here. I don't see any of them today. What transpired? And also the fact that yesterday they were shot at.
They are still around. They are confined to a cricket club far away from the court precinct, which is not very fair because we are in a democratic country. People should be allowed an opportunity to demonstrate, to protest, and so on without them being violent. And we think that the fact that they are taken far away from the court precinct tells us that there's something very wrong with how we do the things we are doing. That is why some of them were growing impatient to an extent that some were shot at and had to be taken to hospital. But we think that these are things that should really be corrected. People can be taken far away. They can't travel this distance to come and just make a demonstration. Now they're taken far away. You would want to think that people who are in charge are not aware that we are in a new country where demonstration is allowed.
Talking about people who were shot at and got injured yesterday, how is their situation?
I am reliably informed that they are okay. They are okay. They are with the masses now. They are there. Everything it's okay.
And lastly, the court can either go 2 ways. It's either you can win or it can go the either way. In case you lose, are you willing to take this further?
I wouldn't want to predict what the outcomes would be, and I wouldn't want to predict what we'll do after if we succeed or we don't succeed. But certainly, if it goes either way, we'll sit down and reflect. Even if we win, we'll sit down and reflect on the road that we've traveled this far. Even if we lose, we'll do the same and pronounce ourselves immediately after that.
That was Chief Mbangisen Masiya Wotobela. He's one of the leaders of the group that is disgruntled about their area being incorporated into the new municipality without a proper consultation. We'll be going into the court very soon to listen to the MEC for Coxa or the office thereof to tell us or to give us their presentation on the decision that was taken to take Vuwani out of Makhado into the new municipality. And it's back to you in the studio.
Mike, thank you very much for that. That was Mike Maringa, a reporter out in the Limpopo High Court, giving us the latest on what's happening with that demarcation battle. Now, on to other news. Veteran human rights lawyer George Bizos spent last night in hospital after a fall. He apparently fell while at Rhodes University, where he was a guest at the guest speaker at a public lecture in commemoration of Freedom Month. Bizos was admitted to the Donald Gordon Medical Center in Parktown. He was described by a family friend as being awake and alert after his admission. And Mangaung Metro Mayor Thabo Manyoni says South Africans must stop being in denial about racism and face it head on, just like issues such as HIV/AIDS. Manyoni was speaking in Bloemfontein, where he delivered a speech at the Brown Fisher Memorial Lecture last night.
Rainbow Nation is a myth, simply because in South Africa we are faced with racism and inequality. And in that regard, we can't say we all are equal. And I think as a country we need to deal with this issue of racism. We can't have a nation where most black people are treated with suspicion.
Now, after news that has rocked the entire world, not just the music world, an autopsy for the late singer Prince will be carried out today. The pop icon died at his home in Minnesota yesterday at the age of 57 after having been reportedly treated for flu-like symptoms a few days ago. News of his sudden death has prompted a flood of tributes from the worlds of entertainment and politics, all the way from US President Barack Obama to Madonna and Mick Jagger, as well as ordinary fans.
Prince became a global superstar in the 1980s with albums such as 1999, Purple Rain and Sign of the Times. He sold more than 100 million records during his career. A singer, songwriter, arranger and multi-instrumentalist, Prince recorded more than 30 albums. His best-known hits include Purple Rain, Let's Go Crazy and When Doves Cry. In 2004, Prince was inducted into the Rock and Roll of Fame, with the Hall saying he rewrote the rule book. Last week, he was rushed to hospital hours after performing on stage, but was soon released. Tributes have been pouring in on social media, and fans have been gathering at Paisley Park. Prince was 57 years old.
And on that tragic note, that's where we leave it for now. We'll now hand over to Elvis President, who's standing by.
Thank you, Kendall. Indeed, a sad day. It's going to be a purple day, although I'm wearing red tie today. It's going to be a purple day with Prince as Purple Rain comes down. We'll also, you can also let us know what's on your mind on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter page. Send us your condolences for Prince. But the question that we pose to you is on prisons, because that's the focus today. We're asking you the question, what do you make of the alarming statistics of the number of youth, specifically youth, in our overcrowded prisons? That's the question. I would like to get your thoughts on the Facebook page as well as the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. We'll conclude and we'll read some of your comments a little bit later. Now, the South African jails are all overcrowded. They're violent and they unsanitary. Now, this is a report, a recent report by the United Nations Human Rights Committee. According to that report, it does state that South Africans' prisons are places of dilapidation, where food, exercise and ventilation are inadequate. It also states that the committee, that the deplorable conditions are marked by gang violence, sexual abuse and torture. These are some of the issues that we're going to deal with today. Now, police and Prison Civil Rights Union POPCRU maintains that overcrowding and understaffing in prisons remains a challenge with regards to the abolition facilities, those rising levels of violence between inmates and the rehabilitation of prisoners. PopCrew spokesperson Richard Mamabolo now joins us in studio to talk about the conditions in prisons and how it affects their members. A very good morning to you, Squire, and welcome.
Morning.
First and foremost, Richard, what is PopCrew's response to that United Nations Human Rights Committee report?
Look, I think we've always maintained that there's nothing new about the report. These are issues that we've known and, of course, we've been closely observing for many years. I think the fact that you've got, for the past 22 years, an increase in the population, prison population of 30%, and, of course, 117% in those who are on remand, who have not been sentenced, has been something that we've always been discussing. And of course, what is most worrying for us is that we have conducted a study as PopCrew, and we found out that 80% of those released from prisons do re-offend. So I think the question we should be speaking about is the methods that are being utilized to ensure that rehabilitation does indeed take place within prisons.
Mm-hmm. Have any of your members, though, complained about the conditions in the South African prisons before we get to rehabilitation?
Look, all our members are complaining for a number of reasons, of course. There are many challenges that are currently happening. Lack of uniforms as basic challenges, you know, the overlooking of certain agreements that have been signed into with the department where members were supposed to have benefited from those agreements since 2010. They have not been implemented up to so far. The very fact of overcrowding as well, and of course understaffing, remains a challenge, where the ratio, whereas a staff member would be responsible for at least, let's say, 10 inmates, they're currently standing at a rate of maybe 1% looking after perhaps 40 or even 50 inmates, which is inconducive.
Yeah. Does that affect the safety of your members?
Our members are not safe currently. Of course, it does affect them. The morale is very low, by the way. A lot of complaints are coming through that. And of course, we know that the DCS has obviously also tried to ensure that they recruit more members into the system, but there are more resigning as well, you know. So it does not equate the balance, really.
Do they get rewarded for these for these conditions? For instance, maybe getting danger pay, because these are dangerous situations that they find themselves in.
Part of the occupation-specific development plan that was signed in the agreement that was signed in 2009 was to mainly speak around all those issues that due to the nature of the work they do, and of course due to experience as well, they would obviously be getting a 3% notch as determined by the time frames that they have been agreed to. Since 2010 up until now, nothing has been committed to. The implementation of all these agreements have been basically ignored by the department. So members are not happy at all.
Are you as PopCrew engaging with the department, with government, to talk about the concerns mentioned and about the report itself, and what's the way forward and some of these resolutions that has not been implemented? Look,
we have been in talks for a very long time, and of course through bargaining councils, which is a platform for those discussions, there have been continuous talks, and of course I think it's getting to a time where you realize that really members can't take it any longer. We are of course engaged. We've been engaged with the department for a very long time, not only on the issue about our members, but on a variety of issues as well, inclusive of the issue around rehabilitation.
Now, there's other issues as well related to this, because the United Nations Human Rights Committee report also says that inmates complain of being tortured. Have you found any reports of your members being involved in torturing prisoners or inmates?
There are, of course, structures that do investigate into that. But as PopCrew, we've always made it clear that we do not support any form of torture in whatever form. Torture, be it against our members or those who they're looking after, you know. So in that regard, we have always made our stance clear.
Now, we're asking our audience the question in terms of the number of inmates, especially youth in our jails, overcrowded jails. What has been your members' experience on the ground?
Look, it's a worrying concern, of course, that you have a lot of young people being in our jails, of course. And, of course, the fact that you also have 80% of those who are in prisons reoffending as well obviously speaks to the issue around the kind of rehabilitation that takes place. But, again, it also speaks to the kind of socioeconomics, the socioeconomic conditions that most of our people are faced with, really. It speaks to the broader society on issues around education, around ensuring that our youth are, of course, channeled in ways that would ensure that they become productive in society instead of ending in prisons.
Now, we've heard about prisoners getting their degrees in prison, but what sort of rehabilitation methods are being used by the prison system? And maybe you can assist us that in terms of your members and the feedback that they give
Look,
you.
we think...
and do they work, by the way?
You see, the issue around overcrowding, of course, would make sure we would then interpret to giving limited access for everybody to obviously participate. We believe that, of course, there are those who are currently qualifying and who are at school, but that's a limited number. We would want to see the entire prison population actually participating in one way or another. One of the suggestions we've made is that looking at the number, well, the percentages of those who reoffend, 80% shows basically that, you do not have a conducive rehabilitation program. And we feel that there should be programs that are implemented immediately when a person is incarcerated. There should be an established program for those people, immediately. One of the things we are suggesting, of course, is that prisons should become self-sustainable. You'd remember that just a few weeks ago, after the UN report came out, you had the correctional services saying that they will be utilizing 2.6 billion rands over the next 3 years to ensure that they deal with some of these challenges. We do not see how that can be possible because building more prisons is not a solution. And of course, we think that by way of ensuring that we remove all the tendering processes from prisons and ensuring that all prisons become self-sustainable by way of making their own food, the furniture that they use, they should be the ones making it, of course. So they should be, that we believe would generate skills so that when some of the inmates are released, they can, of course, then share their skills outside, and of course, they can be independent. Some of them can even create jobs for that matter.
I know my time is up, but this is a very important question. We have overcrowded prisons. You have a problem by integrating these prisoners into society. So what is the solution? And you say, no, you don't have to build more prisons. What is the solution?
We don't need more prisons. We obviously need to focus on the socio-economic conditions of our country, ensure that a majority of our people do benefit from the economy that we have, ensure that young people do go to school, work on skills, ensure that we get more artisans. So it's a broader, there are broader answers to that specific question, really.
Richard, thank you so much for your time. I'll spend an hour with you just discussing that issue, but thank you so much for joining us. That was the POP Crew spokesperson, Richard Mamabolo, talking to us about the report that was released by the United Nations Human Rights Committee saying that South African prisoners, or prisons rather, are overcrowded and they are marked by violence. And that's the question that we pose to you as well today. You can let us know what's on your mind. We're asking you, especially pertaining to the youth, the number of youth in our prisons and in these overcrowded prisons. What do you make of that, and how do we deal with this issue? I'm trying to find questions or solutions rather this morning. You can let us know on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. Let's take a look at some of the comments this morning. President Barack Obama has called Prince a creative icon with a strong spirit as he offered prayers after the musician's unexpected death yesterday. Now remember, you can also send us your comments at SABC Newsroom. He's playing Purple Rain, and only Prince can play it the way it sounds. Listen to this. And they cut me off to listen to that song. We wanted to hear Prince, man. But Krista says, I remembered my parents weeping when John Lennon died. I was 8. I asked if they knew him. They said, in a way, now I get it. And this one from Rick Fox says, a world of ending happiness. You can always see the sun. And day or night, everything is going to be all right. No longer on your own, says Rick Fox. Prince, rest in peace. Well, there you have a dove. Purple dove. Can you see it there? And there's a tear in the eye of the dove. MH says, when a legend dies, the world is silent, but their music is reborn and will live on forever. Now, MH, I must state this because this was one of his favorite sayings. He says, when they ask him, how would you want people to remember Prince? He says, they don't have to remember me for my weirdness. They don't have to remember me for my style. They have to remember the music. That is Prince. There's a picture of the man. Well, they cut off his head there, but there you have it. These are some of the pictures on the Twitter handle. You can also let us know what's on your mind on the Facebook page. Now, comment of the day comes from our very own John Esterhazen here at the SABC, who highlighted Quincy Jones's reaction to Prince's death. He says, rest in peace at Prince, a true artist in every sense of the word, gone way too soon. Hashtag there, he says, SABC News. There's a viewer pick of the day today. You can see we lost the legend from Beyonce. This is a picture of the day that comes from the picture that was posted by Beyonce from one of Prince's most memorable quotes. And it says that everyone has their own experience. That's why we are here, to go through our experience, to learn, to go down those paths. And eventually you may have gone down so many paths and learned so much that you don't have to come back again. Prince, the legend. Yes, rest in peace, the legend, Prince. Also known, formerly known as the artist, the symbol, I think it was. There was all sorts of names attached to Prince. Now let's take a look at what's happening in the news today. Here on home soil in the Northern Cape, the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, is expected to lead a delegation of ministers and provincial government leaders on a tour to various expanded public works program projects to highlight the contribution of various programs aimed at the development of communities in the province. The projects are in Kuruman and in hometown Kimberley. Now, that visit is part of the government's initiative to review progress made in its programs that are aimed at creating job opportunities for millions of South Africans. In Johannesburg, Czech fugitive Radovan Kriča, fellow inmate, and warder, they face charges relating to a jailbreak plot. Correctional Services Officer Soli Metlai and the prisoner Sandile Mdumbe will appear in the Kempton Park Magistrates Court today relating to an alleged plot to aid Kriča to break out of prison earlier this year. And in Polokwane, about 500 residents of Vuwani have conducted a night vigil at the Polokwane Cricket Club in Limpopo. They are waiting for a High Court outcome today on the Vuwani-Mamelodi Municipal demarcation matter. The High Court proceedings started yesterday. Now, the residents there do not want their area to be merged with Mamelodi to form a new municipality. That is from Vuwani there and we'll keep you updated on that story. They were last night at a cricket ground. I don't know if it was a day or night match. I'll make sure about that, let you know. But now let's take a look at the front pages of the newspapers from around the globe. We start off in Europe. The Times reports that Barack Obama will appeal to voters today to ensure that Britain continues its outsized influence by remaining inside a European Union that enhances its global leadership. As you can see, don't turn away from the EU, Obama tells Britain. Moving to the US, still staying in the USA today, they says that Prince, a game changer in popular music, died yesterday at his Paisley Park compound in Minneapolis, suburb of Chanhassen. He was only 57. Died very young, died too soon, as some of the tweets indicated there. There you see him in purple, everybody's purple guitar. And then the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal rather, reports that tens of thousands of Wall Street bankers face tighter restrictions on how they are paid under new rules proposed by the U.S. regulators in response to the financial crisis nearly a decade ago. And still on the front page there you see Prince in action live there on the front page. These are some of the newspapers from around the globe. We'll come back later to tell you more what's happening on the continent here. But right now, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back after that. You don't want to touch that remote. You don't want to go away. We are discussing overcrowded prisons in South Africa. It's close to our hearts. We'll have a guest in Cape Town as well here in Johannesburg. You have to stay tuned on Newsroom, your favorite program.
News Today keeps you informed with news locally and around the world.
When Judge John Hlophe challenged the Supreme Court of Appeal when it sent the matter back and said that there must be an inquiry set up.
We unpack business news.
There's an increase in general inflation in the country.
We give you up-to-date news of the day.
The drugs were seized at several locations in Sydney, including a shipping container sent from Hong Kong. Police saying it's their largest haul of illicit drugs in 2 years.
We round up sports news.
Kotata, tell me about the legacy that you would like to build and be remembered for.
Trying to get my foundation running, which is going to focus on, all the sport, doesn't matter disability or able body. So, I'm passionate about sports.
Stay informed every Monday to Friday from 3 to 5:30 p.m. CAT. SABC News.
Welcome back. And still on today's theme, earlier this month, the South African National Institute for Crime Prevention and Reintegration of Offenders, NICRO, released a report on the state of prisons. Now, that report shows that sexual offences for children under the age of 18 years amounts to 23%. Now, that's horrific. Now, that's compared to those aged between 18 and 25 years. Now, joining us from our Sea Point studios, we are joined by NICRO's National Manager, Advocacy and Lobbying, Vanessa Padeachi. Vanessa, very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, Elvis.
Now, the report that came out earlier this week by the UN painted a very grim picture about the state of our prisons here in South Africa. Now, based on your research, is that really the case?
Yes, it is. Elvis, we have a very dismal situation. 68% of our prisons are overcrowded, and the overcrowding is causing a huge problem. So it's actually a crisis that we have to attend to as a country.
Take us through your report.
Okay, well, I've updated it since then. That report was released a few years ago. But, well, what it was pointing out is that I think overall we don't have a crime problem in the country. We actually have a social, a moral, and an economic problem. And that is why we're ending up with so many people in our correctional centers. But we're also overusing incarceration. I think there's a huge problem in our societies. Our moral systems, our family systems have broken down. We've come from centuries of oppression and enslavement, leading to shame and lack of dignity. And this is what's causing aggression and violence in our communities. Drug addiction. We have huge, huge problems. And I think we don't have a crime problem. We have to start looking at those issues. And I think we want to let the criminal justice system resolve things too easily. When communities and families need to take some of that responsibility.
Now you
we
talk
need
about
to build that as a nation.
Yes, you talk about enslavement and you talk about oppression. How does that filter then through to what we are currently seeing on the ground?
Yeah, I think we can't underestimate unresolved trauma. We can't underestimate how oppression is shameful, so much so that it destroys the human person and their dignity. And dignity is important to interact in a society, to become a productive member, to even have proper interpersonal relationships. And people are lost without purpose. They're turning to drugs and alcohol. And it's really, I think it's a crisis situation for South Africa. We need to start dealing with it.
Now, your report, The State of Prisons, indicates that sexual offences for children under the age of 18 years amounts to 23% compared to those aged between 18 and 25. What could be the cause of this increase?
Well, like I said, I think we've got a huge problem of juveniles and children in prison. Currently, it's 26% of the prison population. We have over 40,000 young people in our prison, and that is an even greater crisis. And I think it's coming from the problems that I just described to you. Yes. Children are not being raised in proper homes, are not receiving the socialization, the leadership that they need from responsible adults that show them right from wrong. They're being exposed to immorality in their own homes because of poverty and the situation where they have to live in the same room where parents engage in, or mothers and fathers in sexual activity. they see it in their communities. We are responsible for children going to prison. So I think we have to take responsibility for that.
Now, we heard in our earlier interview that a number of these prisoners that do come out do re-offend. So what sort of rehabilitation programs are you putting forward and engaging these inmates in?
Okay. Elvis, as much as rehabilitation is important, I think one of the big problems is that there are some offenders, and a lot of them, who have gone through interventions in prison, and they want to turn their lives around. And they come out and they want to continue that process of dealing with themselves, learning the life skills, understanding where it went wrong, understanding the consequences of their crime. But then they also need to work. And we can't underestimate the value of work. Work is dignity. Productive work is a right for every single South African. And unfortunately, because of the criminal record, many South Africans, employers, including government, do not want to employ ex-offenders. And we see this as so disheartening, because we see that those ex-offenders, pressure is put on them by their families. They can't just live in the communities without bringing income. And then you understand why the gangs wait to take them in again. They want to turn their lives around. But we as society need to give them a second chance. I really think this is so important. Yeah.
But how important is it then for civil services involvement in that rehabilitation program? Because, as you said, it is a problem that people don't just want to take them in.
Yeah, well, so civil society is quite broad. I mean, you're talking about NGOs and CBOs getting involved. There's many NGOs and CBOs doing amazing work on the ground. But then communities, I think we are a very divided society. Yeah. I heard you speaking earlier about the issues of racism and inequality. And we really need to build solidarity and nation building in our country. I think it's deeply divided, and we have to heal those wounds so that we become our brother and our sister's keeper. So if those juveniles in our community, I mean, it is our responsibility as adults to make sure if we see them going in the wrong way, to come around as a community and steer them in the right direction.
Now,
so we really have to get our priorities right.
Yes. Now, people, Vanessa, that need assistance, that's currently out there listening to us and watching the program, where can they get assistance from NICRO, and how do they get hold of you?
In terms of the
in terms of the rehabilitation program, or maybe just some advice?
Yes. Well, we've got offices across the country, but I can't give you that list of all those numbers now, but I can give you our head office number, which is 021-462-0017. We also have a website, www.nicro.org.za. And we have an interactive website, so if you put something on there as a community, we can engage with you. And, yeah.
All right. Vanessa, thank you.
So you can also email us at info@nicro.co.za.
Vanessa, thank you so much for your time and joining us.
Okay, thank you, Elvis.
Now, that was Vanessa Padiachi. She is NICRO's National Manager, Advocacy and Lobbying. It is an uphill battle. We'll continue this discussion after the break. But first, let's just take a look at what is happening on some of the comments today and to see what you have to say there. Now, look at this issue first. President Jacob Zuma yesterday announced that the Arms Deal Commission of Inquiry has found that there was no evidence of wrongdoing in that particular deal. Now, we want to get your comments. We'd like to hear what you have to say about it. A number of people say, was this perhaps a waste of money, this commission? Let me take a look at what you have to say on the Twitter handle. This one from Shane says, Jay Naidu, there was no compelling evidence led at the Sariti Commission. Why do people expect a report with a different finding? Asks Shane. And this one from Ndabizita says, those who now say the Judge Sariti Commission report is not valid because he was appointed by President Jacob Zuma, who appointed the Concord head and the public protector? Asked Ndabizita. This one from Motsamais says, big questions left unanswered about the Sariti Commission. And let's see if there's another one. This one from Romeo says, Concord to determine the constitutionality of this Sariti Commission of Inquiry. Is this the right way to go? Ask Romeo Mo Black. Now, those are some of your comments that you have got, but please let us know what's on your mind. Remember the theme that we're focusing on today, overcrowded prisons in South Africa. I'd like to get your thoughts. What do you make of the alarming statistics of the number of specifically youth in our prison system. Let me know what's on your mind. On the Twitter handle and on the Facebook page. If you like us there, by the way, you become part and parcel of the Informed on the Facebook page and join the elite on the Newsroom. This is Newsroom on Channel 404. The Facebook page is up and running. Let's take a look what's happening there. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to lead a delegation of ministers and provincial government leaders on a tour to various expanded public works program projects in the Northern Cape. That is today. And then the city of Johannesburg says it will engage with the community of Zandspruit north of Johannesburg to discuss the many issues, including issues of electricity supply. Remember, communities in uproar. They're burning tires and closing the roads. You can't drive through Bayes Nodia Drive to the north of that road. It is in shambles, and the community certainly not happy. And then finally, South Africa is expected to import more than 4 million tons of both yellow and white maize from May this year until April next year. Now, a lot of maize being imported because we do have a shortage, as you know, and the prices has gone up too. So you can find all these details on our Newsroom Facebook page. You can just type in the word Newsroom. Type in today's date and you'll find today's program. If you want to find any other program, you can go back and search any other date and you'll find it there. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back after the break.
A lot more Africans are getting smartphones.
We've got 150 million people using mobile devices in this country.
This means internet connectivity is increasing. That results in access to information. Some are using social media to share new African narratives through campaigns.
The friend says, oh, I'm seeing this thing on Facebook. Where is it happening? At Yege Stadium, everybody goes there.
On Network, we tell you how Africans are staying connected. We also have new gadgets, games and social media news. That's Network with Ms. Phumelele Zondi every Sunday at 19:30 Central African Time.
This week on Bophelong, a reformed sex worker relives her painful past.
When I took a decision of being an escort, I gave myself a time frame that I want to be there for a certain period of time because I wanted to save money. I used to work as a professional prosecutor, not the girls who are standing on the streets. Accountants, lawyers, some members of the parliament. Those are the kind of people that I used to meet.
Be sure to tune into Bophelong this Friday at 5:30 only on SABC News.
Now remember that you can engage with us today on the question that we posed to you. A very important question because our theme today is about overcrowded prisons and prisons in general in our country. And we're asking you the question, what do you make of the alarming statistics of the number of youth, especially in our prison system? You heard it there from NICRO, the number of youth that they do have and reoffenders that go back into jail. So let us know what's on your mind on the Facebook page and on the Twitter handle. And also please note, this is very important, that we have also invited the Department of Correctional Services spokesperson Manalisi Wolela, who confirmed that that he'll speak to us, but we are still waiting for him to pitch up. So if he does come, we will continue with that discussion. If not, we'll keep him glued to another date here on the Newsroom, so he can chat to us to tell us about the report that you've just heard, some shocking statistics that we've seen. Now, the South African Prisons Organization for Human Rights says that it will fight tooth and nail to make sure that conditions in South African prisons change. We are now joined by prisoner rights activist Golden Miles Budu to talk to us about the state of South African prisons. Sir, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Elvis, for having me, and thank you very much for your audience.
Now, you've always been an activist and a steady rock for the prisoners' rights. What is your reaction to the report that we've just had from the UN that overcrowding is a problem? It's problematic here in South Africa.
Elvis, it's in fact a sad day that being an activist all these years and been released from prison almost 25 years, and when I count the years that I've also done in prison, when we formed this organization. It's a sad day that I've been seen as an enemy and an oppositionist.
Why is that?
Because, you know, when you put away everything and this become no more a career or a profession, but a calling, and then you speak truth to power, to authority and justice, we are seen as an oppositionist.
Yes.
And I've been here so many times since 1991, keep on singing the same old song. And people know me as Umakala Njalo. I always complain. And I hear through the grape of the vine, in the corridors of power, that Miles, when are you going to make suggestions and proposals and recommendations that we deal with this scourge of not only overcrowding, but our prisons being called universities of crime and so on. Maybe one must make use of this opportunity to make a few suggestions and recommendations what really needs to be done, so that in 5 years' time we are not coming here and saying the same old story.
But we'll come to those recommendations because they are important, because these are the things that that needs to be implemented if we want to see a change. But based on your research that you've done, how bad are the conditions in prisons?
I mean, it is really bad, you know, especially in a constitutional democracy. Especially when you read in the Constitution, Section 35, subsection 2, paragraph E, that talks about the embedded and constitutional rights of sentenced and detained offenders in terms of exercise, adequate accommodation, nutrition, food, medical attention, and reading and studying material at the expense of the state. I mean, the report that we're talking about here is embedded on those 5 fundamentals, which are constitutional rights which prisoners and unsentenced prisoners must enjoy. The reason why it is then regarded as, our prisons is regarded as one of the worst in the world, is because we are a constitutional democracy, and these constitutional rights of these target groups has been violated. And one can, you don't even have to go too far. You know, a few months ago, a report was released, which was researched, which was compiled by the Honorable Judge Edwin Cameron, assisted by 4 of his law clerks, a certain Shaida, Jesse, Yahim, and Elizabeth. I think it is important that I mention them, because this report that I'm talking about was not going to be so informative and educative if the judge was not assisted by these law clerks, which he visited Portsmouth Prison from the 3rd of April, and the report was released in August last year. And one asks yourself, what do we do with all these reports that has been compiled since the dawn of our democracy? And the solution, the recommendation is, if all these organizations that are involved in all these reports could be taken out of the doldrums, out of the filing cabinets, put it on the table, let's form one forum as relevant organizations, go through the recommendations, approach government and the Department of Correctional Services, and talk in terms of implementation of these recommendations.
Let's talk about those recommendations, because they're important, because we haven't got that much time. So give me your key thoughts in terms of recommendations, what should be done. You now mentioned that there should be one committee with all these recommendations put together, or all these reports put together, and come up with a final recommendation on how we deal with these issues in prison.
Well, there are hundreds of these recommendations. All we need to do, we need to rope in all the relevant organizations and stop intellectualizing the fracas and the calamity that is happening in our correctional centers. Form this forum, approach the Department of Correctional Services, and I'm very optimistic because we've got a Deputy Minister. And the Deputy Minister, Thabang Makwetlo, is prepared to listen with his National Commissioner, Zakaria Modise. And we approach them, go to them, and let them make funds available, including the United Nations, for the implementation of these recommendations.
Now, rehabilitation and integration, those are key points. Are the rehabilitation programs working? Reintegration, is that even a possibility?
No, it just can't work, because you see, rehabilitation, we have got our own definition of what rehabilitation is supposed to be. Rehabilitation is about investment and investment and investment. And make sure that when you invest in the training, the education and the skills development of sentenced and unsentenced offenders, you make sure that after you have invested in these three aspects, you will then have a final product called rehabilitation. And after rehabilitation, you have reintegration. And when you reintegrate a rehabilitated product, you must be in a position to monitor this product, to evaluate this product, and also to enforce this product. And that has not happened as yet. But I'm very optimistic because I sit on a forum called the Ex-Offenders Recommendations Forum, initiated by the Deputy Minister of Correctional Services.
And what will that committee do, just briefly?
Well, this committee is busy working on 9 recommendations that was made at a conference which was held last year in June for 3 days, organized by the National Deputy Commissioner and the National Deputy Minister of Correctional Services. That we are working on 3 of the 9 recommendations. And these recommendations are taken to the Deputy Minister of Correctional Services so that he could see it could be whether it is implementable.
Yes.
And if it's implementable, they will make the resources available to the relevant organizations to implement these recommendations, and then we will work on the other 6 remaining recommendations.
Mr. Budu, it's a pleasure having you here in studio with us, sir.
Thank you, Alvis.
Thank you so much.
That
was Miles Budu. He is he's a prison rights activist, speaking to us about the state of the South African prisons. You heard it. I would like to get your comments on the Twitter page as well as on the Facebook page. Now, let's take a look at some comments, and this relates to the 6.0 magnitude earthquake that has struck off the coast of Ecuador. The earthquake comes just days after a devastating 7-point earthquake killed at least 587 people in the South American country and amid internationally assisted recovery efforts. Let's take a look at some of the comments that have been coming through. Remember to also please send us your comments at SABC Newsroom. Here's one from Chef 2 said, I beg your pardon, another grief competition. This time, a prince. Every media outlet have its first 10 stories in minor news. Ecuador hit by the second earthquake. That from Chef 2. This one from Nicole. Nicole says, to put it in context, this earthquake for Ecuador is as if the entire west coast of the U.S. would have gotten hit by an earthquake. This one from Nicole there. This one, R.C. Harris says, the U.S. gives $100,000 for the Ecuador earthquake, which happens to be what it cost to be the bathroom attendant at a #Hillary fundraiser. Can you believe it? Now, Tomiso Edgar says, I pray that the Lord really intensify the fervor of his love in the hearts of the people of Ecuador. Faithful Savior, #Ecuador earthquake. That one from Tomiso Edgar Laburu. On the Twitter handle, these are some of your comments. You can keep them coming on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. Also like us on the Facebook page if you like us there. You become part and parcel of the Informed. We'll go now to the weather forecast to find out how hot is it in this country or how cold it is in some parts of the country. It's over to Philip Hawkins.
Yeah, thank you very much. Welcome to the Weather Desk. Let's take a look at what's going on. And we're going to start off with some clouds. Now, of course, this is what's been going on over the last few hours. To start off with, we see a lot of cloud over Central Africa's regions. No surprises there. But we are also seeing dense cloud bands extending through South Africa's southwestern areas now. Now, that's the result of a cold front which is passing by. Indeed, it is approaching for today. And what that's going to do, it's going to bring in heavy rainfall to South Africa's southwestern areas. Do expect very heavy rainfall, expect very high wind speeds, and that, of course, is going to be quite a day for the Western Cape and the surrounding areas. In terms of the rest of Africa, we're seeing a drier one throughout the rest of Southern Africa, moving further north and towards Central Africa. Isolated showers for the most part just forecast in the area. Those extend towards Addis Ababa again and the surrounding areas. So getting a little bit of rainfall there. So good news for the area. Now what we're going to see into the following days is that we're going to see those clouds forming over the western parts of Central Africa. Those are going to intensify, bring in a little bit more rainfall to the area, and the cloud cover and the rainfall extending towards Addis Ababa, just leaving slightly. It's going to be a little bit less cloudy into tomorrow. But let's take a look at today's forecast in a little bit more detail. Cape Town peaks at a very mild 19-degree maximum. Now, this is where we're expecting conditions which are leading to heavy rainfall. We're seeing very rough seas, and we're seeing very high wind speeds with gusts up to 90 kilometers per hour. Very, very strong winds there. For the rest of Southern Africa, a more mild day forecast there. 29 degrees in Pretoria, Gaborone peaks at 31 and Harare at 29-degree maximum with mostly sunny skies. It's going to be a sunny one in Lusaka as well, 28-degree highs, partly cloudy over Lilongwe and the surrounds. Now, 28-degree maximums forecast there, but moving slightly further north, we're going to see that rainfall coming into play. Dar es Salaam at 32 degrees, Kilimanjaro sharing that same high. Now, as we said, we're still seeing that rainfall extending towards Addis Ababa and the surrounds. 22-degree maximums forecast for Addis, and of course, if you're going to be in Sana'a, also expect a 26-degree high with a fair amount of rainfall there too. Khartoum, no surprises there. A sunny one with a 42-degree maximum, slightly cooler than it was yesterday and the day before, but nevertheless, 42, very, very hot. Tehran's at 28 degrees, also expecting a little bit of rainfall and cloud cover there. Cairo peaks at 36, so a nice warm to hot day forecast for Cairo. It's going to be dry then as we move further west along the coastlines. The dry one continues. Almost no rainfall, if any at all, forecast through Africa's far northern regions there. Marrakesh peaks at 29 degrees. Las Palmas at 23. Now, West Africa's southern coastline expecting a partly cloudy sky. Monrovia and Conakry still expecting a little bit of rainfall in these areas, but not extending very far into the interior at all. Bamako's at 43 degrees, so it is going to be a hot one there. Niamey at 45 and expecting a little bit of cloud cover for today. Bangui still peaking very hot there, 39-degree maximums with isolated showers and thunder showers. So it is going to be very hot today and very humid as well. This is where you can contact us. Weather at sabc.co.za is our email. Otherwise, give us a call. 011-714-5077 is the number. That's where we leave it for now. Stay tuned.
Good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to a higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News channel.
The deepening hunger crisis in Malawi is threatening the survival of children.
And also it is the life-threatening part of malnutrition.
Malawi is facing its worst food crisis in 9 years.
Mugabe is the world's oldest sitting head of state, ahead of Queen Elizabeth of Britain.
The veteran leader seeks to temporarily forget his party's problems and instead focus on his legacy.
But he shows no sign of slowing down or stepping down from power after 36 years in office.
Health Talk looks into incorrect lifestyles that lead to chronic diseases. It is extremely important to take care of our bodies to a long, healthy life.
Incorrect eating and being inactive then leads to the person becoming overweight and obese.
The kidney is one of the essential organs of our bodies. It keeps us healthy and extracts toxins from our blood.
The kidney controls the blood pressure. Right. And if the blood pressure is not normal, then your heart is affected, all the blood vessels in your body is affected.
Dialysis is the only solution to kidney failure. The support of the family is crucial.
What made it possible for me is to accept that I've got kidney failure.
Join your host, Dr. Sidla Mutawung, every Saturday from 9 to 10 a.m.
Trends saw a stage play where two great forces were born in South Africa.
The Broederbond formed in 1918, which is the year that Nelson Mandela was born. So these forces were essentially born in the same year.
Brilliant clothing designs and jewelry comes from cement.
So we try and guide the artists and the designers in playing, experimenting and testing their work through the medium of concrete.
Behind the scenes of an exciting Afrikaans movie, Modder and Bloed, we met the actors.
And the cultural backdrop is kind of irrelevant. It's kind of the flavor of the film.
That whole
thing brought us all closer together, and it read beautifully on camera. You know, we weren't acting cold, we were really cold.
Join Refilo Muilwa every Friday at 9 p.m. on Trends.
It is Friday, the 22nd of April, 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the second hour as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios, Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12. We're also streaming live on YouTube. The entire show is available now on the YouTube channel. Question today. We're asking you, what do you make of the alarming statistics of the number of youth in our prison system? Want to know from you on the Facebook page as well as the Twitter handle. But first, let's take a look at the news headlines. President Jacob Zuma wraps up a week of talks with the other members of the Southern African Customs Union. And at the Brown Fisher Memorial Lecture, Mangaung Metro Mayor Thabo Manyoni told the audience that South Africans must stop being in denial about racism and face it head on. And an autopsy for the late singer Prince to be carried out today. Legend is obviously gone. There you can see him. We'll get your comments in a short while about Prince as well. But let's find out before we get to the news. Let's find out from Kendall what's happening on the sports front. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Elvis. It's actually not such a good morning for all music lovers, with Prince having gone only 57 years old. Yes. Very sad news. Good morning to you. This is what's happening in sports today. It's round 9 of Super Rugby 2016 and the Sharks are up against it as they take on defending champions Highlanders in Dunedin this morning. The 14-time Grand Slam champion powers his way into the Barcelona Open quarterfinals, beating compatriots Albert Montanes 6-2, 6-2. And at least 2 people killed when part of a new cycle lane collapses into the ocean in the Olympic city of Rio de Janeiro. That is what's coming up in sports in about 20 minutes or so. Now time for the news.
And that's just before the Olympics.
Just before the Olympics.
A bridge collapse in Rio.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Kendall will keep you updated about the latest a little bit later, so you'll have to stay tuned. Right now, the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, has just finished briefing the media on a tour to various expanded public works program projects in the Northern Cape. The projects to be visited are in Kimberley and Kuruman. Public Works head of the EPWP project, Stanley Henderson, says that the purpose of the visits is to highlight the contribution of various programs aimed at the development of communities in the province. Now, for more on the story, we're joined by our reporter, Reginald Witboy. Reginald, a very good morning to you. And can you please tell us, what did the minister say in this particular briefing?
Hi, good morning to you, Elvis. Yes, we are coming to you live from Greenpoint here in Kimberley. The Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, is currently making his way to Kuruman to just visit some of the EPWP's sites just to look whether everything is still on track and whether people who are participating, whether they are happy. But here in Greenpoint, the Minister of Labour, Mildred Oliphant, along with the Minister of Small Business Development, Lindiwe Zulu, and then also the MEC of Public Works, Pauline Williams, actually, they have just concluded their visit here in Greenpoint. It is a paving and brick making project which they visited here. They had their walkabout, interacted with the people who actually work on these projects. But to tell us about these projects and why he actually decided to participate or to jump in on this. I'm joined now by Clayton Brown, and he is here in Kimberley. Good morning to you, Clayton. Just tell us when have you started on this project, and just to give us a clear picture as to why have you decided to be part of the EPWP project.
Good morning, sir. We started last year in October with the EPWP project. And to be part and parcel of this project is a huge experience for all of us who work here and who is around in Greenpoint. So we appreciate it for the Roads and Public Works who bring this project to Greenpoint and our councillor, Mr. Leonard Stein, to make it possible for us.
Now, if I can just ask you, this project, it's only temporarily. What are you going to do after you've completed this project?
I don't think the project will be temporary, because after every 6 months they renew our contracts. That's why all of us are still here at this project, and we love the job that we're doing. We appreciate the Roads of Public, seriously.
Okay, thank you very much, Clayton. Well, that was Clayton Brown. He is one of the EPWP participants here in Kimberley. This project, it's a nationwide project which actually alleviates poverty and also help the unemployment to look at a downfall. But the government actually plans to create 6 million jobs by 2019 through the EPWP projects. But Elvis, with that, it's back to you in the studio. My colleague Selwane Gagau will give us more when the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa will touch base there in Kuruman.
Reginald, thank you so much for that. That was Reginald Witboy, our reporter in Kimberley. He's joining us live there from Greenpoint. Lovely little area there in Kimberley. And as you heard, he'll keep us updated. In fact, our other reporter will keep us updated when the Deputy President lands in Kuruman. Now, the President, Jacob Zuma, wraps up a week of talks with the other members of the Southern African Customs Union today. He arrived in Swaziland yesterday on the last stop of the tour, which included visits to Botswana and Namibia. Consultations are underway to determine a date for the President's visit to the 5th member of the Union, Lesotho.
Touching down at the Matapa International Airport in Swaziland, the tour is aimed at engaging one another on ideas that will make SAKU function better.
The establishment of some kind of a regional fund that will be able to fund cross-border projects, because one of the features of SAKU is that we haven't actually come together and funded any kind of development project that has any kind of relevance to more than one of us. If we've done it, it's only on a bilateral basis. It's never been through the institutions of SAKU. So those will be some of the proposals or suggestions of work plans that we will be putting forward.
Swaziland is one of the countries which relies heavily on SAKU for revenue. More than 50% of the country's national budget is made up of SAKU receipts.
We export goods to the Republic of South Africa, and we also import a lot of goods from our neighboring state. That is why we also have the customs union, because of the trade that exists between these two countries.
President Zuma will also meet Swazi King Mswati III. The Swaziland government is optimistic that ongoing discussions between SAKU member states will help improve trade relations. President Jacob Zuma will wrap up the SAKU tour in Lesotho. Mweli Maslela, SABC News, in Babane, Swaziland.
Opposition parties have expressed shock and disappointment at the Seriti Commission's findings. They've labelled the report a whitewash and a farce.
And end some of these allegations which have been hanging around us for about 2 decades now, that there was no fraud, no corruption, and there was no improper influence from a point of view of selecting of bidders. And we think it puts an end to some of these allegations that have been part of our public discourse for the past 2 decades.
It makes it difficult for us to ever trust commissions of inquiries as tools that uncover the truth. It seems that they bury the truth. And so it must be rejected with the contempt it deserves.
I'm guided by the saying that there is no smoke without fire, but I think that, with due respect, I think that I read it with disbelief that no one influenced anyone and so on.
Those who were implicated in arms procurement corruption have effectively been let off the hook.
According to the report, there was no wrongdoing. All the equipment is fully utilized, which is simply not true.
Why were persons such as Tony Yangeni, Shabi Sheikh found guilty, or are those unrelated issues? Why were foreign governments looking into this issue?
Meanwhile, critics of the Security Commission say they've always known that the Security Commission was a whitewash. Andrew Feinstein and Paul Holden and Henny van Vieren have issued a statement saying they are disappointed but hardly surprised about the Commission's findings. Whistleblowers Patricia DeLille and Terry Crawford Brown says it was a waste of taxpayers' money.
The arms deal, conceived as early as 1995, it was signed and sealed in 1999. After the dawn of a new democracy, government undertook a process to replace the country's aging military hardware. Authorities saw the need to acquire new warships, fighter jets, helicopters and submarines. But it's a deal that was shrouded in controversy amid allegations of impropriety, corruption and bribery. Projected to cost 29 billion rand when it was first signed, the figure has since risen to over 70 billion rand due to inflation and other charges. And when tenders were awarded, more allegations of corruption emerged. Patricia DeLille, a PAC MP at the time, among those who cried foul. She handed in a dossier containing allegations of corruption in the negotiation of contracts and calling for an inquiry. And over the years, it's an acquisition that's seen probes by a number of bodies, including the Scorpions, the Heath Investigative Unit and the Hawks, but little emerged. But in 2011, there was a twist. Terry Crawford Brown took the president to the highest court in the land. A legal challenge that saw the Security Commission established. It saw 4 years of public hearings and testimony from 54 witnesses, including former President Thabo Mbeki and ex-cabinet ministers.
Commissioners' reviews of government with regard to threats and all of that are reflected both in the white paper and the defense review. As a person, I don't have any views that are different from those.
With the release of the final report clearing all implicated parties, 3 of the critics who boycotted the hearings say the findings were not unexpected.
Total waste of taxpayers' money. It was a predetermined outcome even before the commission started. The only thing that Judge Sariti had to do was to design a process that can produce the outcome.
It's clear that the Arms Procurement Commission did not admit certain crucial documents and never investigated the allegations in those documents.
I was not surprised when I listened to the President this morning, but sadly, the importance of the arms deal is that it has unleashed the culture of corruption that we face.
South Africans also weighed in on the report.
I was disappointed at the outcome. The reason is that even the process, we found that the members of the commission pulled out.
It was in the public favor. As a nation, we also need weapons.
With no findings of wrongdoing and no recommendations at all, it now means the arms probe is now a closed chapter. Janji Chauke, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, the Department of Correctional Services and the 67 Blankets for Nelson Mandela campaign are gearing up to break a Guinness World Record of the largest blanket to celebrate 22 years of democracy. That initiative aims to beat the recent record set by India by laying down a 15,000 square meter blanket at Drakenstein Correctional Centre, from where Madiba was released in 1990. Now, to learn more about the campaign, we now cross to our reporter Vanessa Puna, who is in the Drakenstein Correctional Centre in Cape Town. Very good morning to you, Vanessa. Tell us a little bit more about this campaign and what is currently happening there. Paint us a picture.
Well, it's quite a wet and windy day, Paul, in the Boerland, but we are not planning on being wet blankets, if I may, just to make the, if you pardon the pun. Joining me is Minister of Correctional Services, Michael Masuta, and behind me, if we can just show you those visuals, is a sea of colour. Blankets sewn together in all the colours that I could possibly think of. It's just going on for, I think, hopefully 15,000 square metres, if that is exactly what we will achieve when we take on India, Minister, to outshine them in terms of the biggest blanket ever, not so?
Well, actually, we're very excited about this. The theme, as you know, is crocheting or knitting lives, broken lives, and the nation as a whole. It's all colorful, and thanks to wonderful people like Caroline Stein next to me. As you can see, she's the best dressed lady with all the tapestry on her jacket, which is befitting in relation to or against the backdrop of all the sea of color that you see behind. And of course, we're in the city of Cape Town, which is, as you know, is living up to its reputation. Windy, cold, wet, cloudy. And I think it's the best symbolism because out there are many cold people who are poor, who are without the blankets they need on weather like this. So we're looking forward to sharing this product with people who truly deserve it. Old age homes, centers for victims of violent crime, especially sexual abuse, and that type of things.
Now, Minister, I know that there are quite a number of partners who have partnered with the department in this initiative, but also the initiative itself, from an offender point of view, goes a long way towards part of the department's rehabilitation process. How do you, Minister, say that this initiative assists in rehabilitating offenders to prepare them to once again, once their sentences are complete, to come back into society and participate meaningfully in society?
Yeah. Actually, this project is a representation of many of our policy perspectives and policy thrusts. Firstly, it is an opportunity for us as correctional services to move out of our locked spaces into the community and share our humanity with the rest of the community, and to show the community that inmates can change their ways, they can become better people, and they can actually make a positive contribution. You know, every year, at the start of the year, when the schools open, our inmates go out to communities, refurbish schools, help kids grow their own food gardens and this kind of thing. Today, we're doing something different, all in honor of Madiba's 67 years of sacrifice, and of course the 67, building up towards the 67th day, which marks his birthday. We started this project 2 years ago, and now it's just taken a new life of its own. But the purpose really is to ensure that the community out there.
That was the Minister, Michael Masuta, there with our reporter, Vanessa Puna. But we do apologise for the visuals that's breaking up there, as well as the sound quality, which is also good. As you know, it's raining in Cape Town. This is the time for Cape Town to receive some good rain, so unfortunately we've got to take it from there. We'll try and see if we can get back there later to the Minister to find out what is happening, and to our reporter. But let's move on to stories now that's happening here in the north of the country. Two more respondents in the Vuwani Mamelodi Municipal demarcation stalemate will take the stand and make their arguments before the Limpopo High Court in Polokwane today. The residents of Vuwani, through their advocate, have made an application to the High Court to reverse the Municipal Demarcation Board's decision to include their area in a new municipality. About 500 residents of Vuwani conducted a night vigil at the Polokwane Cricket Club in Limpopo last night. Yesterday, 9 residents were injured after police used rubber bullets to prevent the residents from entering the premises of the Limpopo High Court. Some of the people who spent the night in the open say they will try negotiate with the police to allow them to picket outside the court. Earlier, our reporter spoke to the community leader and asked him if they still think they have a case.
Yes, of course, we are still confident that we have got a case. We are satisfied with the way things are moving. We can only celebrate the fact that we've been given a court platform to present ourselves, to present our story, to prove that whatever happened did not go according to what it's supposed to be. So we are still confident. The court is still proceeding. We think that the outcomes would be favorable to us. In fact, from the first day that we thought of a court process, it was based on our conviction that there is a case that can be won.
But your main gripe was that there was no proper consultation. What was the response of the demarcation board and the Department of COGTA on that matter?
I wouldn't want to dwell much on the case that is still in process. That is still they could say it's still on. I may not be able to make comments on that so that I don't jeopardize whatever presentations are being made in court.
Let's talk about your people. We understand that 8 buses ferried people from Vuwani to here. I don't see any of them today. What transpired? And also the fact that yesterday they were shot at.
They are still around. They are confined to a cricket club far away from the court precinct, which is not very fair because we are in a democratic country. People should be allowed an opportunity to demonstrate, to protest, and so on, without them being violent. And we think that the fact that they are taken far away from the court precinct, it tells us that there's something very wrong with how we do the things we are doing. That is why some of them were growing impatient to an extent that some were shot at and had to be taken to hospital. But we think that these are things that should really be corrected. People can be taken far away. They can't travel this distance to come and just make a demonstration. Now they're taken far away. You would want to think that people who are in charge are not aware that we are in a new country where demonstration is allowed.
Talking about people who were shot at and got injured yesterday, how is their situation?
I am reliably informed that they are okay. They are okay. They are with the masses now. They are there. Everything it's okay.
And lastly, the court can either go 2 ways. It's either you can win or it can go the either way. In case you lose, are you willing to take this further?
I wouldn't want to predict what the outcomes would be, and I wouldn't want to predict what we'll do after if we succeed or we don't succeed. But certainly, if it goes either way, we'll sit down and reflect. Even if we win, we'll sit down and reflect on the road that we've traveled this far. Even if we lose, we'll do the same and pronounce ourselves immediately after that.
And that's your news for now. Now, after the break, we'll take a short one. Kendall will be back with your sports news, and he does have a guest, and they'll be talking rugby, so you'll have to stay tuned.
They are basically arresting him, continue to arrest him on behalf of the apartheid government.
We are dealing with effects. We are not dealing with the causes. And for as long as we deal with effects, we are never going to solve this problem.
What do these people need in prison? Why are they there? The PAC, as Dr. Pegu is saying, has been seeking answers, and they're not coming.
What kind of answers are you getting?
I really think I've answered that question.
I think it's a difficult question. I don't have an answer for it. How was it possible that they could operate with such impunity?
The only thing you want is closure.
The only thing we want is closure. And unfortunately, I don't really have sympathy for the idea that if you're too old, you shouldn't stand trial.
That's Rights and Recourse with Dumile Mateza, every Sunday at 2 p.m. Central African Time, only on the SABC News Channel.
Right. Good morning. Welcome back. My name is Kendall Makhamat and you're watching Newsroom and I've got your sports. Our top story for this morning is not a story, but it's a discussion because it's round 9 of the 2016 Super Rugby season, and with almost all of the teams having played 7 games each, we're just about halfway. To talk a little bit about the competition and how it's gone, what with all the changes this year, is Kumani Bambale. Good morning. Welcome back to Newsroom.
Morning, Kendall. Good to be back.
It's been a while. You've had a few matches in Super Rugby under your belt so far. What is your opinion of the new season?
Well, a lot of people thought it would be so complicated, with the new format, so many teams. But, I mean, things have gone smoothly so far. And, I mean, we've seen some good rugby. I mean, if you look at a team like the Lions, how well they're doing, they've surprised a lot of people. A team like the Bulls, a lot of people didn't expect much from them, especially considering that they've got a new coaching staff, a lot of youngsters coming through who've got no Super Rugby experience. But then they've actually done pretty well. And, of course, our newbies, the Kings, they also have done a decent job.
It's been a bruising affair for the newbies, hasn't it?
It has. I mean, for all three, especially our Sun Wolves from Japan. If you look at the result last week against the Cheetahs, I mean, that just went on to prove that there is actually quite a big gap between the sides.
Having said that, before this competition started this year, looking at the Sun Wolves specifically, we calculated with Vatongobedi that they would be travelling some 800,000 kilometres during the course of this season. That is insane.
It is very much insane.
And surely that must have an effect, some kind of effect on the Sunwolves who are not used to it, one, and two, don't have the kind of depth that the older Super Rugby teams have gotten, and they're from Japan. It must be hectic for them, hence possibly a score like they against the Cheetahs last week. They look lackluster.
It certainly is. I mean, imagine travelling from Japan to South Africa to Argentina. I mean, all those distances, I mean, they do have an effect on the players, on the bodies. And, I mean, with that much travelling, you're bound to get results like you got last week. I mean, but it goes for all the other teams. I mean, our teams have to go to Japan and then come back and then also go to Argentina. I mean, it's a lot of travelling. But, I mean, that's the nature of the competition at the moment. With 18 teams from all these continents, it's bound to happen.
Right. Now, let's have a quick look at what's happening with regards to the rest of the logs, because the New Zealand teams, once again, have been head and shoulders above the rest. I mean, if we look at, and I'm hoping that we can have a look-see at the logs for the Australasian Conference. If we look at the Australasian Conference, it seems like at least 4 of the New Zealand teams are going straight through qualifying for the playoffs already as things stand, and they've been standing like this for a couple of rounds already. Let's see if we can bring up that log standings for the Australasian Conference. Yes, we can talk about it and actually talk to that particular picture, because you'll see that the Chiefs, the Hurricanes, they're all doing extremely well. We've got the Brumbies, they're sitting in second, but they're sitting only on 21 points. We'll get to that. But it's Chiefs, Crusaders, Hurricanes, Highlanders, 29, 27, 25, 23. All like much higher than everybody else. When is it that South African teams are actually going to be competitive with that? And looking at the Brumbies, they're not doing that well either.
Yeah, I mean, the New Zealanders, I mean, they've always been head and shoulders above everyone else. Nothing new this year. And I don't know what to pinpoint it to, that they are miles ahead of everyone else. But, I mean, they play good rugby. They play the kind of rugby that every other nation should actually look at playing towards. I mean, some of our teams, like the Lions, the Bulls, and the Cheetahs, are trying to play that expansive game. And it will take some time before they can catch up. But, I mean, also the Brumbies, they've been doing well. But, yeah, I mean, those New Zealanders, there's just no stopping them.
Just one thing with regards to the travel, we shouldn't really ever use that as an excuse, because I know the Chiefs, they travelled very soon after the start. They did some 4 back-to-back matches overseas and then came back home and that kind of thing, and they're still topping the log. Let's have a look at the South African log. log, just so you can see exactly what we're talking about now. Remember those scores, that the lowest is 23 in the Highlanders, and they qualify already. If we look at what's happening with the Stormers and the Sharks and Lions, we've got the Stormers leading the South African Conference on 24 points, then the Lions on 22, Bulls on 23 as well. Something not quite right there. We'll fix that later. But those are not the highest kind of points for these guys.
No, certainly not. And I mean, it's not going to get any easier for these sides going forward. If you look at a team like the Bulls, they on their second bye this week. From here on, they play every other week for the next 8 weeks. I mean, it's going to be an arduous season for them. So it won't get any easier. I mean, the guys just need to pull up their socks. Right. And I mean, these problems are not just prone to South African teams. The New Zealanders have the same problems we have in terms of travelling and all of that.
Yeah.
The Australians have the same problems, but they're doing pretty well.
No, that's true. Now, talking about pulling up socks, we've got a young man by the name of Elton Yankees, who's actually certainly put up his hand as definitely somebody who deserves to be wearing the Springbok jersey. He deserves to have his place in the sun as the number 10 in the country.
He certainly is at the moment. And I mean, with Pat Lambie coming back soon, I would definitely pick Elton Janches over him any day. I mean, he won't be able to play that many games before the mid-year season, international season, and Elton is the man for the job. But then if you look at people coming behind him, we actually don't really have flower half who's also put their hand up to say, okay, I can go into the Bok team with Elton. And I mean, we can't really rely on a guy like Lambie coming back from injury to go and fulfill that role. But I mean, Elton, he's been superb this season. I mean, it's been a long time coming. He should have been in that side 4 years ago, you know.
Well, having said that, his performance this year has been quite, it's been outstanding.
It's been outstanding, you know. If you would compare to the time when he was at the Stormers, you know, to the performance he's putting in through, he's definitely on par with some of the best fly halves around the world at the moment.
Okay, now just one of the things that we definitely need to talk about before we finish our discussion today. We need to have a look, see at what you would call the match of the weekend. Now, to help you a little bit and jog your memory a bit, I know you're covering the Kings match down in PE this weekend, but to jog his memory and yours, here's a quick look at what's happening with all the Super Rugby matches this weekend. There's one that's already on the go right now. That's the Sharks against the Highlanders out in Dunedin. A big one for the Sharks. We're hoping that they actually get one over. I know they started pretty well, but there you go. I mean, the Highlanders Sharks 9:35 this morning, should be ending pretty soon, and then going through to the bottom where we've got Brumbies Crusaders on Sunday morning 8:05. Where would you say amongst all of these is the match of the weekend?
It certainly is Sunday's game. Brumbies Crusaders, teams who will challenge for the title. I mean, you could actually say this is one of the finals before the final. I mean, Brumbies in second place on the log. Crusaders, I mean, that's a team that's always in contention every single year. And I mean, that will definitely be the game of the weekend. And also, I mean, the game that's playing at the moment, as you said, very important for the Sharks. Yeah. They started pretty well, but then things haven't gone too well for them since. And there's also some questions around Gary Gold's selections and whatnot. But hopefully, if they can get their start off overseas to a good start against the defending champions, I mean, they would certainly turn around for the rest of the season.
No, done deal. Definitely looking forward to it, because besides that, we also do have the Hurricanes Chiefs match tomorrow. 2 times champions against several times champions. Aaron Cruden against Bowden Barrett. You know, everybody's looking forward to that matchup, and I think it's going to be a fun weekend.
Absolutely. I mean, as you said, that Hurricanes Chiefs, definitely one to look out for.
Kumani, thank you so much for coming through. We do hope that you enjoy, that you have a safe flight to and fro Port Elizabeth, that you have a great match, and we'll chat to you again soon.
Thanks a lot, Kendall.
Now, there you have it. Kumani Bambani, a rugby journalist and analyst, as well as commentator, talking to us about Super Rugby 2016 at the halfway mark. Now, staying with rugby news, South African Rugby confirmed on Thursday that it had assumed administrative control of the Eastern Province Rugby Union. Mr. Monde Tabata, an independent member of the SA Rugby Executive Committee, has been appointed to the role of administrator. Now, this decision to action the intention of the SA Rugby Executive Council was taken after consultation with EP President Mr. Cheeky Watson and with the union's cooperation. A letter formally advising EP of the intention was delivered to the union on Monday. Now, the CEO of SA Rugby, Yuri Roo, said that South African Rugby's intervention did not mean that the mother body would provide new funding for EP. This comes after EP Rugby was reported to be insolvent. Cheeky Watson said that the decision had been confirmed in consultation with EP and that the union and him would fully cooperate with SA Rugby. Mr. Francois Davids, a member of the SA Rugby Executive Council and a former president of Boland, has been appointed as an interim chairperson of EPRU committees. Now, staying with rugby news, the Griquas rugby team will clash with the SWD Eagles in Kimberley this weekend. Both teams are currently undefeated in the Currie Cup qualifiers. The Griquas have had 3 days of training sessions in preparation for this match. The Kimberley side has won its 2 opening matches with good wins over both the Griffins and the Falcons.
Last year, the Griquas actually hit rock bottom when they ended last on the ABSA Currie Cup log sheet. But this year, they actually want to turn it around and restore confidence in their fans. The team are actually preparing, but to tell us more about their readiness for this weekend's game, I'm joined now with Peter Engeldo, who is the coach for the Griquas. Good morning to you, Peter. Just tell us, how is training coming along? Any injuries or concerns that might pose a threat to this weekend's game?
Yeah. Luckily enough, no serious injuries. We have given a few players some rest and giving some players an opportunity to stake a claim for the jersey. So competition is very strong at the moment. Training is going exceptionally well.
And also, you had 2 victories over the Griffins and also the Falcons, and clearly you've gained much confidence, didn't you?
Yeah, confidence and momentum is a big thing in rugby, but myself and the team, we're very humbled and we're very grounded, and we know that it's going to continue to take a lot of hard work and dedication to get our goals and achieve our goals.
And also, any player from the opposition that might pose a threat to the Griquas boys?
Yeah, firstly, I think SWD have done exceptionally well in the first 2 rounds. They've got a very strong mauling game and also kicking exit strategy, so we're very aware of that. I think as a team they're doing very well, and we're obviously preparing to get the result over them.
And then lastly, Peter, what can you assure or give to the Griquas fans leading to this weekend's game here in Kimberley?
I think myself and the players, the biggest thing that we focused on during pre-season was a commitment to restore pride in the jersey, and also to make it entertaining for people who come out and support us. So, yeah, we can't guarantee the result, but we can guarantee that we'll put all the effort into the match, and basically we want to put pride back into the Northern Cape and to ensure that Griquas has a good run in the Currie Cup.
Now, at least 2 people were killed yesterday when part of a new cycle lane collapsed under crashing ocean waves in the Olympic city of Rio de Janeiro. The 50-meter-long lane was part of a more than 3-kilometer-long cycle lane opened in January in an urban regeneration project to spruce up the city for the August sports spectacle.
With less than 4 months before the beginning of the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio, the cycling lane along the Atlantic coast collapsed after being washed away by waves. A pile of rubble is all that is left of the new section of the cycling lane. Officers from 2 fire stations and the airborne operations team were called to the scene after the incident. Several people were enjoying the view when the lane was washed away.
I passed by the cycle lane and I just stopped when a wave of rocks came down and the water rose and left the area of the cycle lane. There had been 5 people taking pictures on the spot that the sea swept away. A bus that was going fell into the water and the windows broke, then rose and went down again, dragging everyone into the sea.
The collapse happened just hours after the Olympic torch was lit in Greece to begin the countdown to the Games. On the 27th of April, Brazilian organizers will receive the flame in a handover ceremony at the Panathenaian Stadium in Athens, the site of the first modern Olympics. The flames relay will start in Brazil's capital city, Brasilia, on the 3rd of May, ending in the host city, Rio de Janeiro, on the day of the opening ceremony. The Brazilian president, Dilma Rousseff, who is facing impeachment, cancelled her trip to the ancient Olympia.
In these difficult days that Brazil is facing, the flame is a timeless reminder that we are all part of the same humanity. The flame is an ancient symbol of peace and harmony, a symbol of the power of humanity to come together despite our differences.
Rio will become the first South American city ever to host the Olympics. Mduduzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
Now on to other sports news, where Rafael Nadal was crowned the 2016 Monte Carlo champion, is on course for back-to-back tournaments. This comes after booking his place in the next round with a straight-set win over Albert Montanes. Day 4 of the Barcelona Open also produced a straight-set win for defending champion Kei Nishikori of Japan.
Former world number 1 Rafael Nadal continued his recent impressive exploits on clay courts. He dispatched Albert Montanes 6-2 and 6-2 to advance to the quarterfinals. Ahead of the contest, Nadal described his state of mind as calm and confident, which was evident early on in the contest. The Spaniard broke Montanes in the first time of asking to seize control of the match. However, Montanes hit back with a break of his own to trail Nadal 2-1 in the opening exchanges. From there on, there was little to separate the two, with both players holding serves. That was before 8-time Barcelona champion broke Montanes' third serve, which proved decisive as he went on to claim the set. In the final set, the 14-time Grand Slam champion proved too strong for his fellow countrymen.
For Rafa Nadal, the 14-time Grand Slam champion.
Despite Jeremy Shedi being ranked lower than his opposition and trailing Nishikori 3-2 on head-to-head, Shedi went into this match confident of results. On 2 occasions the players met on clay courts. The French got the better of the Barcelona defending champion. The 13th seed held his own in the opening exchanges until 3 unforced errors handed Nishikori a love break. That proved instrumental in deciding the outcome of the first set. In the end, the Japanese hit 19 winners and committed 20 unforced errors to claim a 6-3 and 7-5 win. Joseph Mohali, SABC News.
Now, Mamelodi Sundowns coach Pitso Mosimane says their spirit will not be dampened by the loss to AS Vita Club in the CAF Champions League, and Mosimane says their quest to win a treble this season is still on course. Following their loss in the Champions League, Sundowns will now campaign in the Confederations Cup.
Sundowns still licking their wounds after their defeat. The club's dream to conquer African football is well known, but this was temporarily put on hold when they lost with an away goal to Vita Club. Mosimane says they've now learned valuable lessons that will help them in their future endeavors.
A different war. It's a different space. It's not a PSL, it's a jungle. And you need to have the right specimen and attitude and tactic for the war.
The Brazilian coach says all is not lost.
With the league, we are in the same position. With the Nedbank, it has been 100% for us. We are in the same position. Telkom, 100%. Okay, MTN top 8 was not right. Okay, but with CAF, we are in the same position, but we are in a less prestigious tournament. Now it's Confederation Cup.
The players have vowed to remain focused with just a few weeks left before the end of the season.
We have to be strong. It's very critical. The season is almost over, and if you take your foot off the pedal now, you can lose it all. So we have to be professionals and know what's at stake.
Of course, one match can't unsettle us. We really prepared for this since the beginning of the season. We knew it's going to be tough in some matches, but I'm happy. Like I said before, we're winning matches, and it's a good feeling.
Sundowns only have little time left to pick up the pieces before facing Orlando Pirates in the quarter-final of the Nedbank Cup on Saturday evening. Sfeso Ramara, SABC News, Midrand.
Now, before we do anything further, take breaks and hand over to Elvis. Let's take a quick look at the fixtures for the Nedbank quarterfinal weekend. As you can see, tonight we've got a match on, and that's Super Sport United against Black Aces. That match kicking off at 8 p.m. And then we've got a match tomorrow, Free State Stars against Bidvest Wits. That's at 1500 hours, that's kickoff time. And then Mamelodi Sundowns, they play Orlando Pirates, as you've just heard. That's a big matchup for the weekend, 8:15. A lot of people will be looking to see if Sundowns can come back from that defeat to AS Vita. Sunday, 24th of April at 3 p.m. Polokwane City against Baroka FC. And that's where we leave it for now. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, Elvis President is standing by to carry on with the news bulletin, as well as more analysis on all the breaking news.
The deepening hunger crisis in Malawi is threatening the survival of children.
And also it is the life-threatening part of malnutrition.
Malawi is facing its worst food crisis in 9 years.
Mugabe is the world's oldest sitting head of state, ahead of Queen Elizabeth of Britain.
The veteran leader seeks to temporarily forget his party's problems and instead focus on his legacy.
But he shows no sign of slowing down or stepping down from power after 36 years in office.
We're heading to a future of cars that will drive themselves, and a place where robots will be doing some of our chores. But the challenge in Africa is to make sure that everyone is part of this new world.
To be behind with technology, it is a challenge for us as offenders.
There are many initiatives to ensure that Africans are truly connected.
We're now giving more access and internet to now the end users.
On Network, we have information on Africa's technology landscape, possibilities for the future, and some great African innovations. That's Network with me, Mamelodi Sundowns, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
Welcome back. The abduction and trial of Justina Makoko tells a gripping and chilling account of Zimbabwe's history. For 19 days in 2008, Makoko, who was abducted from a home in the early hours, was tortured while her whereabouts were kept secret. A former broadcast journalist who left Zimbabwe State Broadcast in 2000 after becoming concerned about the level of editorial interference, Makoko 14 years ago, while she was working for the independent radio station, she became the human rights activist. Makoko poignantly described how at the crack of dawn, in her night clothes and in front of her teenage son, she was bundled into an unmarked vehicle and abducted. Joining us now in studio is the author and the human rights activist, Justina Makoko. A very warm welcome. It's an honor to have you in studio.
Thank you very much, Elvis.
First and foremost, you're in South Africa now for a while to talk about your book, or why are you here?
I'm here to talk about my book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell me about this book and your ordeal that you went through.
I thought it was important for me to write this book because it's a representation of what has happened to a lot of Zimbabweans. I will say I'm not the first one to have been abducted. Neither will I be the last. So I think this is testimony of the fact that this is something that happens.
That currently is happening as well.
Yes. We have a human rights journalist, Itai Zamara, and many others who are missing at the moment, who haven't been seen from the time that they disappeared. I also decided to write this book because I felt that I had this load on my heart and I needed to offload it.
Yes.
And I feel that I have offloaded, and I also feel that it's a victory for human rights defenders because they held their heads upright and demanding my unconditional release. And also an appreciation to my family that went through a lot of suffering. I have a brother who walked a grim walk, going through dead bodies in morgues, looking for me.
How long were you imprisoned?
I was in Communicado for 21 days, having been abducted on the 3rd of December at the crack of dawn, like you said. And after I was handed to the police on the 22nd of December, I was then committed to the Chikurubi maximum security prison, and I was there for a further 68 days. So
I believe it's a very dangerous prison, Chikurubi.
I would say that it's not a comfortable place to be. But I will say to you, for me, it was a welcome change because I was able to see my family on a daily basis, unlike when I was in incommunicado detention. Yeah.
All right. Now, let's talk about the trial. We understand that you were not even aware that you were due to appear in court.
Yes, I was driven to court unaware that I was going to court. I just found myself in the grounds of the Rotondo Magistrates Court. And there was this huge gathering at the court. I suppose people wanted to see what had happened to this woman who just disappeared from the face of the earth. And from the crowd, I could sense my brother's voice, who said he was there to support me. But I had not consulted a lawyer by that time. So I was very afraid what I was going to do in court without having given instruction to a lawyer.
Now, when the judgment was handed down by the Constitutional Court, which found that your rights were violated, by the way, by the state through its agents, what was going through your mind at that point in time?
It got emotional because the pain and the ordeal was harrowing. I thought I did not deserve it, and I was vindicated by the court because I was then granted a permanent stay of criminal prosecution. But I had gone through so much physical and psychological torture on someone who had not committed a crime.
As a journalist, you are trusted to tell a good story in Zimbabwe. How did you go from telling a good story to being state enemy number one?
I'm not sure I'm state enemy. I shouldn't be state enemy. I am a law-abiding Zimbabwean citizen.
Now, you decided to write this book, and you've launched it now. How's it going, and where can people get hold of it if they want to read your story?
At the moment, it's readily available in bookshops in South Africa, and launches are going to happen soon, and people are going to be advised in terms of where the launches are going to take place.
Wonderful. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us here in studio.
Thanks a lot, Elvis.
Now that, of course, the author and human rights activist Justina Makoko here in studio. Her book is available right now in South Africa. Now, April is usually the most popular month for negotiating annual wage increases within the collective bargaining system in South Africa. But beyond the normal wage negotiations at this time of the year is the continuing robust debate about the possibility of introducing a national minimum wage in South Africa. This is driven by a NEDLAC study and negotiations on the matter being facilitated by the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa. In South Africa, along with about 40 other countries, minimum wages are fixed sectorally, that is, by industry, and not yet nationally. But there's a pressure for a national minimum wage in South Africa, in line with many other countries. Now, we spoke to economist Professor Raymond Parsons from the Northwest University School of Business and Governance, the SBG, in our weekly slot of the economy.
As you indicated, it's NEDLAC that has been seized with this issue for the past year or so. It's a complex issue. Of course, you may say, well, why hasn't it reached a conclusion? Well, that is because it is a complex issue. To move from a sectoral minimum wage system to a national minimum wage is a very big step. And every country has to think about it carefully. And it's quite clear that the participants in NEDLAC, although they may have agreed on the principle, are still not on the same page as far as where should it be pitched, who should take the decisions, how do you make the transition from the present system to some other system. We must understand that in South Africa as elsewhere, when you talk about the labor market, it is a crucial intersection of economic, social and political factors. So I think we have to grant NEDLAC the time to do the necessary research, to negotiate and see what they can come up with. I think it may take a little time more before they can reach a decision.
Now, the purpose of a minimum wage normally is to protect lower-income workers. But in this case, what are the advantages for low-income workers in a national wage? Is there such a thing?
Well, if you have a national minimum wage, it means it covers everyone. It covers all the sectors. You have a more unified approach. And many countries have decided that that's what they want. It's a simpler system. And if it can be in tune with your economic circumstances, it can be made to work. So there are some advantages. On the other hand, there's also the advantage, depending on the circumstances of a country, to have a more flexible system, which is done on a sectoral basis or on an industry basis, which is then geared to the conditions in that sector. What can it afford to do? What should it sustain? Because everyone accepts that indeed vulnerable workers have to be protected and have a right to a basic living wage. The question is, how do you get there?
But are there disadvantages to a national wage? Because some people might be marginalized within a national wage.
Well, of course, that is the problem. There are trade-offs here. We have to understand that if your levels of unemployment are very high, and if your country is not growing very rapidly, you have to think very carefully before you impose a national minimum wage, because this trade-off means that you may end up going from the frying pan into the fire. In other words, you may lose more jobs than the gains you get by those incomes that you improve. Plus the fact that many employers may then decide, especially small employers, that's quite important, whether they can carry a system, and secondly, whether it would encourage business people to indeed mechanize further. And we don't really want to do that in South Africa, certainly not to take steps that might artificially promote mechanization.
What does international evidence and practice tells us about a national minimum wage?
Well, the international policeman of the labour market is, of course, the International Labour Organization. And it has laid down some guidelines drawing on need world experience. They think that, by and large, a national minimum wage should be roughly 40% of the average wage in a country, if you want to go down that road. And they list three factors. The three important pillars are, firstly, what are the needs of the worker? How are they defined in terms of the cost of living, and what do you need to be able to indeed live, at least reasonably? And secondly, you have to look at the economic factors in each country. And then thirdly, what they call the country-specific factors. There isn't one size fits all as far as a national minimum wage is concerned. So that's an important message. But one can draw a lot from the experience of the ILO in the field of minimum wages.
That, to me, sounds like a socialist system, but we're living in a capitalist world. Is that even possible here in South Africa, though?
Well, most countries live in a mixed economy. And part of a mixed economy is the recognition that there are vulnerable workers. There are people at the bottom of the ladder who need some special help. And while it doesn't only take the shape of a minimum wage, be it sectorally or nationally, the fact remains that most countries recognize that you have to do it. The issue really is, what can you afford to do as a country in your particular circumstances? And that is where I think the big debate in NEDLAC is taking place. Given South Africa's economic circumstances, given the levels of unemployment, given the low growth rate, given the inflation rate, what can we do to help the low-paid workers? Can we do it by extending the sectoral system, or should we impose a national system? That's what the debate is all about, and you need to take the right decision. If you take the wrong decision, you will precipitate a lot of very negative, unintended consequences. And I think that's where the debate is focused, not only in NEDLAC, but also publicly. There's a very robust debate out there about what we should do about minimum wages.
You mentioned a mixed system, Professor, but are there other options perhaps that we can explore to address the plight of low-wage workers in South Africa?
Well, I think NEDLAC, the government, I think business and labour, I think a large part of the debate is what other social safety nets can we build in order to alleviate poverty and reduce inequality and create employment. But one has to understand that you have to take a holistic approach. There isn't one-size-fits-all policy. So when we want to improve the functioning of our labour market, and that's really what we've got to be doing in the long run, not just looking at minimum wages, but asking ourselves, what is it in the structure of the labour market that that leaves us with so many lowly paid workers on the one hand and such high levels of unemployment on the other. I think that's the overarching challenge that we face.
Mm-hmm. Now, on a positive note, though, Securities Exchange figures show that foreign investments into South Africa, bought about a net 30 billion rands worth of South African bonds in 2016. That's compared with 10 billion the previous year. What do you make of that, and is that perhaps a positive move in terms of our economy?
I think in the last few weeks we have seen some better news for our economy. You can see that the rand has strengthened. At least for 1 month we've had a dip in inflation, and then of course these bond issues all generate some good news, and we should capitalize on it. But we mustn't do it by being complacent. We're still facing the threat of a downgrade. There are other things we have to be seen to be doing in the next few months in order to turn this economy.
Now, Rhodes University management is hosting a press conference to report back on the meetings held with students. Now, they will also put forward a plan of action. The students held a peaceful protest last night on campus following a day of discussions with the management. Classes remain suspended until Monday. This follows a week of disruptions following the release of a list of alleged perpetrators of sexual assault and rape on campus that was made public on social media. We now cross to our reporter, Lerato Tipa, who is at the Rhodes University, where the briefing is expected to start anytime soon. Lerato, a very good morning to you and welcome. Can you give us an update on what is happening there?
A very good morning to you. Right now, if you just look to my left, in a few minutes, the VC of Rhodes University, Dr. Mapizela Sizwe, is going to be addressing the media. If you understand that just yesterday, they were in Lockerhead's meeting. The main focus of yesterday's meeting was to relook the sexual harassment policy, which the students say has not been amended in over 3 years. So today's press conference is really to provide the way forward, that after yesterday's meeting, what can students expect now from the management to deal with this issue?
Now, we understand that was a peaceful protest last night by the students. How did it go? Did it go off peaceful?
Really, really very peaceful. They really were marching around the campus, singing freedom songs, singing songs which say that, you know what, enough is enough, enough of rape on the campus. But really no barricading of roads, no burning of tires, no police visibility at all, because it was literally a peaceful demonstration, just standing in solidarity saying that, you know, enough of rape on the campus here.
The expectations today at the media briefing, what can we expect, and that particular list that was in question?
What is expected today is that the students on campus are really requesting the people on the list to be expelled, and they say they're going to keep on protesting until that is done. And that's what is expected to hear exactly what is going to happen with the perpetrators alleged to be behind the alleged rape allegations on this campus. So what people want to hear is that these students are walking around every day, and what's going to happen to them, because students are saying they live in fear because these people are students. They're walking around with them on campus. So what is management going to do to address this issue, and above all, what are they going to do about the perpetrators on this campus?
Lerato, I see they're getting ready. Let's go there.
As you can see now, we're about to start. Yes.
Let's go there live.
Yeah, they're getting ready now. Sure.
I will also be handing out
live to the briefing as soon as it starts now. In fact, they're getting ready to address the media there. Let's go there live. Let's see if we can go there live now.
You should use this mic. Okay. Yeah, man. Where does it go? It's good.
As you can see, they are getting ready. The Rhodes University management, they are hosting that press conference to report back on the meetings that were held with some of the students and some of the requests from students to remove some of the students that were accused of rape on campus. Let's go there now live. It seems like they are ready. They're going to start any second now to hear what the university management is saying about the issues on campus. It seems like they have some technical problems there trying to sort out the microphones in front of the VC there. Let's see if we can get them ready. It seems like some reporters there also on the scene trying to get their microphones all sorted out. But we'll hear about the plan of action to move forward, because the students, as you know, held that meeting, or that peaceful protest rather, last night on campus, following the day that was yesterday, discussions with the management, and would like to get the outcomes and recommendations perhaps today after the discussions, what happened there. And as you know, classes remain suspended until Monday. Well, the VC is asking if everybody's ready. Let's go there now live.
All right, thank you. Okay, welcome to you members of the media. As you may be aware, I'm Zuma the Vice-Chancellor of Rhodes University. I thought I should just give you an update on the development on our campus. The past few days have been quite challenging, but there have been important lessons learned. I always view any opportunity of this nature as an opportunity to learn. Rhodes University condemns rape and sexual violence and is committed to upholding the Constitution of South Africa, which is the supreme law of the land. We acknowledge that while we are a microcosm of society in which sexual violence and rape are pervasive, our university does not and cannot tolerate this culture. Rape culture, which refers to cultural practices and norms that uphold patriarchy and tolerate gender-based violence as the norm, is endemic in our society. Every person has a right to their bodily integrity. One rape is one too many. Rhodes University will never protect a rapist. A rapist belongs in jail and needs to stay there for a very, very long time. We acknowledge that there are flaws within the systems that are meant to ensure justice when one's rights have been violated. And so, our students have a right to be angry. Society fails survivors of rape daily, as they are often not believed, and securing a conviction is an excruciatingly difficult task and presents significant barrier to reporting cases of rape. We need to debunk the stranger danger myth, as more often than not, rape is not reported because these assaults take place within intimate relationships. Rhodes University is committed to address our policies and protocols to ensure that we rid our institution of the pernicious scourge of sexual violence and rape and provide a safe, secure, and supportive space for survivors of rape and sexual violence. The challenge of ridding our society of the pernicious scourge of sexual violence and rape calls for a big, bold, and imaginative response, and not just tinkering around the margins. To that end, we have established a task team comprising of staff members and students and chaired by Professor Justina Makoko to look into ways that the university can strengthen its responsiveness to cases of sexual harassment and violence. The following mandate of the task team will be finalized this morning. 1, to make recommendations concerning the ways in which the experiences of survivors of sexual violence can be heard in a safe, confidential, supportive space, and recommend ways in which current spaces may be enhanced or improved upon. 2nd, to review all policies and procedures relating to sexual offenses, gathering input from all stakeholders and interested parties through open invitation. in which the inadequacies of the present situation are highlighted and better ways of dealing with issues of sexual violence instituted. Recommend ways in which staff, including those who are in grades 1 to 6, and students, and student knowledge of policies and procedures may be improved in an ongoing and sustained manner. Let me just read that again. The aim is to review all policies and procedures relating to sexual offences, gathering input from all stakeholders and interested parties through open invitation, and to engage in a reflective process in which the inadequacies of the present situation are highlighted and better ways of dealing with issues of sexual violence instituted. They have to recommend ways in which staff, including those in grades 1 to 6, and student knowledge of policies and procedures may be improved in an ongoing and sustained manner. Third, to recommend ways in which issues related to sexual violence, rape culture, and heteropatriarchal gendered norms can be embedded in the curriculum and other activities of our university, including during the orientation week, in our residences, and working with the trade unions, that this must be done in a sustained manner and in a way that emphasizes the prevention of sexual violence and making sure that we are aware of its locatedness within the gendered power relations. Fourth, to conduct an audit of systemic issues, e.g. the institutional culture, staff-student relations, relations between different grades of staff, attitudes of management, academics, students, administrative and support staff, that promote and undermine rape or sexual violence culture at Rhodes University, and recommend ways in which systemic issues that promote rape and sexual violence may be addressed. Fifth, to investigate ways in which the university does and may further engage locally with our local community and business, and more nationally, on issues of policy, law, research, and activism regarding sexual violence and rape. And sixth, to develop a system of monitoring and evaluation of the embedding of the recommendations within general policy and procedures of the university, and the implementation of accepted recommendations. So those are the terms of reference of this task team. In the short term, we have committed to increasing the capacity of our harassment office so that survivors of rape and sexual violence are attended to without any delay. Second, we have decided to strengthen and expand the existing sensitivity training that is provided to staff and students so that they can deal empathetically and in a caring manner towards survivors of sexual violence and rape. Third, we have committed to using external prosecutors to deal with cases of rape. Fourth, we have agreed to set up a task team to review Rhodes University's sexual assault protocol. Now, this task team will feed into the work of the earlier task team that I have mentioned. The point here, we felt that it was important to look at our sexual assault protocol as a matter of urgency, and that the work that this task team will do will then be communicated to the first task team. Any student who is accused of any offense will always be treated in line with Section 35 of our Constitution. And all students who have been found guilty of misconduct, including rape, will have their transcripts endorsed. We have also made a call to all the students who have been sexually assaulted or raped to come forward to report those cases so that we can act and act expeditiously against those who commit those horrific crimes. Rhodes University has in place several initiatives to raise awareness of sexual violence and rape and support for its students. During orientation, we have had extensive programs and activities, including shows by the drama department with specific education agendas on sexual violence. Each year, the students' program is adapted according to the feedback from the previous year. Rhodes has a committee dedicated to addressing issues of gender-based violence, and this committee is called GenAct. We also have what we call the Silent Protest Committee. With new influxes of students every year, this work needs to be continuously developed. This year, the university celebrates the 11th year of our annual Silent Protest, the largest national awareness-raising campaign against rape and sexual violence. The university will continue these initiatives and re-examine where we might add and/or alter our current initiatives. I think it is important to mention that Silent Protest is located within the office of the Vice-Chancellor, just to underline the importance that we attach to raising awareness on issues of sexual violence and rape in our university. The university agrees with students on all the issues that they have raised. The one area where we have not been able to find each other with the students is in respect of the action that has to be taken against individuals whose names appear on the hashtag RU reference list. Just to give you a brief background, last Sunday, a list of 11 names was posted on the SRC Facebook. Those are names of our current and former students. And those are the people who are alleged to have committed a crime of sexual assault or rape. So the disagreement here arises from the fact that there is a view that those students whose names are on the list should be summarily removed from the university. The university is of the view that we must accord all students the right to a fair trial in line with Section 35 of our Constitution. This is important because some of those people whose names appear there have not even been charged. No charge against them has been laid. And I have given an undertaking, and I've asked the students right through the university to identify any of those people whose names are on that list, and if they violated them, they must report, and we must lay a charge against that person. Once a charge has been laid, we do have within our disciplinary processes to suspend such a person pending the finalization of their case. But we cannot suspend a person without having granted them what is called a pre-suspension hearing. It's a fundamental principle of audi alteram partem. So the first step is for someone to come forward and say, so and so sexually violated me, to prepare a statement so that we can lay a charge against that person. Once a charge has been laid, we can then set up a pre-suspension hearing. And once that hearing has been held, and the view is that the continued presence of such a person on campus is undesirable, we can then suspend the person. So that for me is important, that we treat every person in terms of the Constitution. And Section 35 of the Constitution has the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. The university wishes to express its disquiet with the publication of a list of names of people in the manner that this was done, as it is extremely damaging, and we are of the view that it is unconstitutional. Rhodes University cannot condone the sharing of such information, which is a complete violation of another's rights. It destroys the presumption of innocence and takes away an individual's right in line with Section 35 of the Constitution. The university believes that if after being charged and found guilty of having committed rape or sexual assault, perpetrators must be punished to the full extent of the law. As I indicated earlier, we will never protect rapists in our university. We'll never protect anyone who commits sexual violence in our institution. Rapists belong in jail, and they need to stay there for a very, very long time. But what is important is that we follow due process, and that everyone is accorded the rights enshrined in the Constitution. Following the release of the RU reference list, a group of protesters went from residence to residence, hunting down those whose names appeared on the list. The students were held against their will, and this constituted a violation of their constitutional right. The university expresses its disapproval of this practice. As I've indicated, when the list appeared on Sunday, a call was made for students to gather in front of the Steve Biko building, and a big group of students started to march from residence to residence, going into the rooms of those students who are still at Rhodes, hunting them down and taking them to the whole group. And that was a huge violation of their rights. So we disapprove of that, because it is inappropriate to do that. If someone has committed a crime, we must report them, and they must be subjected to the full extent of the law. We cannot allow people to take law into their own hands. We cannot allow people to take law into their own hands. Now, these students were held against their will by the students. One of them managed to escape that night, and the other one managed to escape later, but the third one was held throughout the night until the following morning. Attempts to plead that he be released were never heeded, and the police came around and freed that young man. We must respect the Constitution, and we must respect the rule of law. The academic program of the university will resume on Monday, the 25th of April, and these discussions will continue through the curriculum. We must not stop raising awareness. We must never shy away from confronting some of the most pernicious and shameful ills of our society. We must never rest until the scourge of rape and sexual violence is permanently eradicated from our society. Rhodes University stands in solidarity with all survivors of rape and sexual violence. Aluta continua. I thank you.
I'll now field questions. Any questions from the floor? Yes. Why do you choose to say that the students who raised charades were hunting down other students? Because in that way you are criminalizing us as students and making us to look like we're hooligans. That time you yourselves do not know what we would have done to the perpetrators. Why are you under the assumption that we wanted to instigate mob justice?
It is important that if there is an allegation against a person, that person is reported either through the university processes or at the South African Police Services, and due process is followed. That is important.
David.
Hi, Dr. Mabizela. Thank you for the statement. Has this statement been endorsed by all the players within the events that have occurred over the past few days? We've had the academics coming out yesterday afternoon. We've had different Nahawu saying they're with the students. Has there been unanimous buy-in to the statement you've read today? Thank you.
Thank you, David. This is the statement of the university leadership. It was important for the university to clarify these issues and inform the South African public about the developments in this university. I must indicate that we have continuous engagements with various sections of our university, and I'm hoping that by Sunday we will be able to convene a university assembly to see how far we are in resolving some of these issues.
Dr. Mabizela, I just would like to understand what solace can you offer survivors, students, and anyone else who wants to know currently, because the task team is, it's understood for what purpose it has been created, but what can you say right now to comfort students, as leadership hasn't really shown a sense of sympathy towards students and what they're feeling currently?
As I have indicated, we are in full solidarity with any student who has suffered sexual violence or rape. We are encouraging them. In fact, over these 2 days, there have been programs in the dining halls to educate our students about issues of sexual violence and rape. But we have gone further than that. We have secured additional staff to provide counseling, because the past few days have been very traumatic for a number of people. And so we have secured additional counseling staff so that those who wish to receive support and counseling are provided with such. And more than that, we have encouraged those that wish to report. In fact, some people have come forward to come and report, and I think the critical thing for us is to provide a safe, secure, caring and supporting environment for them to feel confident that their institution will look after them. And that is what we are trying to do at the moment. Some of the things are long-term, but others cannot wait for long. We must, as a matter of urgency, put in place all the necessary support mechanisms so that those who come forward are not re-traumatized or are forced to relive a very painful and horrific experience. That's why we have increased our pool of counselors so that they're able to deal with that.
Dr. Mandela, Adrian from the Daily Dispatch. The measures you've announced are wide-ranging, and they're going to obviously have a very great effect on the university's approach to these issues. Why has it taken a week of intense protest for this to happen when we had an annual protest?
Okay, great. Thank you, Adrian. The annual protest that we have is really an awareness-raising campaign, not protest in the conventional sense. It is in its 11th year now. In fact, what we have become aware is that perhaps even that campaign needs to be reviewed because we do this on an annual basis. And the events of this week clearly demonstrate that we need to do a lot more. And I think it is important, and I must thank our students and our staff for bringing this very important issue as sharply as they have. You know, one could look at this as a negative, in a negative way, but I look at it in a very positive way. We are an institution where leaders learn. So students have exercised their agency, and they have said issues of rape and sexual violence must be attended to as a matter of agency, and we are responding to that. In fact, the task team that I referred to was not set up today. It was set up on Monday already. We had already started putting together all of these things on Monday. But what has happened also indicates that we do need to continually monitor and evaluate all our programs so that they remain relevant and they remain effective.
All right. Anil Mshakula from Broadcast Mail. That has been a lot on social media from students and social pages as well about your handling of the whole situation. I just wanted to a response from you on first. The first issue is about police being on campus, and the other issue is about the different roads that fall within campus or are public roads, because those were the two issues that I picked up that were problematic. So just from your side, if you could explain that.
Okay. The police have not come on campus as such. What happened on Wednesday, I think it's important to clarify this. On Wednesday morning, the entrances into the universities had been barricaded. Barricades had been erected on Lucas Avenue, on Prince Alfred Street, and also on South Street. Lucas Avenue is a public road. Prince Alfred Street is still unclear at the moment, but South Street is a public road. So when police came here on Wednesday morning, they simply said, you are blocking a public road, namely this avenue. They said, you are blocking the public road, and I'm informed that they gave students notice to remove the barricades, and students did not comply. And after having given them notice, the police used pepper spray to disperse the students to remove the barricades. I'm informed that in that process, 2 or 3 students were arrested. They then proceeded to the other entrances. Again, the situation got quite heated on South Street. That's where police used, I think, rubber bullets. But those are public roads, and each time I asked the police to pull back, they would simply respond by saying, this is a public road, they are violating the laws of the country.
Thank you, Dr. Mabizela. Paige Muller from Abidan Press. My question for you is twofold. In the first task team meeting, it was raised several times that the students no longer trust staff to have their best interests at heart, whether it be with following through with these procedures that you've now put in place, or having their best interests at heart when it comes to police on campus. I was wondering how we were looking to address that. And secondly, in the crowd, as I've thusly seen, and through questioning, it's been raised to my attention that one of the accused was actually addressed for his alleged crimes, and he was given hours for those crimes. Is there any truth to that allegation?
Okay, the issue of trust. I think it will be important, if we really want to make progress on addressing the issues of rape and sexual violence, that we work together. We must work together as management, as staff, and as students. So we really need to develop enough trust so that we are able to pool our energies and our creativity to address what I've called the pernicious problem that faces our society but also faces our university. So trust will have to be earned, and the task teams that I've referred to are made up of students and staff. And I believe that working together, they will be able to craft appropriate responses which will help us create the kind of an environment I spoke of, a supportive one, an empathetic one, a caring one. Because at the moment, people say, we don't trust the system. We have been failed. And so we will have to work hard together to rebuild that trust so that we address these issues which are completely unacceptable in our society. The second one relates to a particular case. I cannot imagine, I'll have to look at the record. I cannot imagine someone who is found guilty of rape being given hours. A few years ago, we successfully prosecuted a young man who had committed rape. And that young man was expelled from this university. And he appealed, and at the appeal stage, the sentence was reduced to 10 years of expulsion from Rhodes University. So that person would not be coming back to Rhodes University, not for more than 10 years. It is quite instructive to note that that case, the state had declined to prosecute. The state said, we don't have evidence, we are not going to prosecute. We marshaled our own resources. We got the best lawyers from Johannesburg, and they prosecuted this matter, and they did so successfully. So what I'm saying is that at times the state may decline to prosecute, and that for me is very important that we were able to successfully prosecute that case. So I'll have to look at that, because if someone has committed such a horrendous crime and is given hours, I can tell you that cannot happen at Rhodes. And if you go around and you get the record, and if that person got hours for rape, then there's something wrong. I will look into that, and I'll get back to you. And if the conviction was for rape, then it had to be far more than hours. It's not hours, it is expulsion. It's mandatory. Okay.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Dr. Mandela. It's Govind from Eyewitness News. I have a few questions, so I'm hoping you'll bear with me. Okay, so we've spoken about the rape culture here, sir, and since this protest has started, there have also been references to the rape culture behind this guy over here, sir.
Yeah.
So from the alumni as well, and I wanted to find out from your desk, do you agree with people who say that there is a rape culture, systemic rape culture at Rhodes University? And then I have a couple of more, if you can bear with me, please, sir. I want to find out how many cases of sexual harassment or rape have been reported to Rhodes University this year, if you have those details. And then I just have an important question, sorry. Does the university at any time deal with allegations of sexual assault, sexual violence or rape internally? Is there any process at the university where allegations of sexual assault are dealt with internally and resolved between the two parties? And then the last one...
sorry.
This one comes straight from the students.
No, sorry. Could you just start? What was the first one? Culture of rape, yeah?
Yeah. How many cases of sexual assault and rape have been reported to the university this year? Does the university at any time deal with cases of sexual assault or violence or rape internally? In the last one from the students themselves, you speak about trust having to be earned, building trust as you deal with the problem of rape. Most of the students are still very unhappy with the video footage that shows you pushing one of the protesters. Some of them say you should offer a public apology, and I know you've already apologized to the students as well. how do you expect the students to trust you again after they were protesting against rape and they saw you pushing one of them? In fact, some of them said that you are their leader and they feel betrayed by what you've done. Okay. What were you thinking at that point?
Thank you. Look, I did indicate that a university is a microcosm of the society. And our society has a serious problem of rape and sexual violence. And so some of those social ills do manifest themselves in an institution of higher learning. And so to that extent, we do have a big problem in much the same way that the whole of our society has to deal with this problem. And we must rid our society and our university. At the moment, I'm responsible for this university. I've said we should never rest until we have made sure that this environment is free of any rape and sexual violence. How many cases have been reported? Since the beginning of the year, 2 cases have been reported. 2 cases have been reported. Do we deal with sexual assault? That is an important question. We do deal with sexual assault matters. In fact, I have been reflecting since the start of these protests regarding the serious crime of rape. Rape is a serious crime. And in my reflections, I've been asking myself, does the university have the capacity and the capability to investigate and successfully prosecute a crime of rape? When the state, with all its resources, struggles as much as it does. And so, as we review our policies, we must ask ourselves if we have the kind of capacity, capability, and expertise that is required to successfully prosecute a crime of rape. That said, any person who experiences this horrific crime must look at our institution as their first port of call. And in that regard, we must provide a supportive and empathetic and a caring space for that person to be supported and be able to report the matter and know that the institution cares about them. The video footage, as you have indicated, I have given an apology in that regard. It was in the context of removing the barriers. It was unintended, and I apologized unreservedly. There was no malice intended, and I can reissue the same apology. Thank you.
Thank you. We are aware that the task team is meeting at the moment, so we'll end it there. Thank you very much.
I don't think my question was answered. I wanted to find out whether the cases of sexual assault are dealt with internally by Rhodes and not reported to the police. Are there instances of that nature happening?
Okay.
And I asked how the Vice Chancellor thinks the students can trust them again.
Look, we do deal with certain aspects of sexual assault in the university, and we have protocols to deal with that. And students can indicate their options that they have before them. They can indicate how they wish their matter to be dealt with. And insofar as rape, in fact, there is nothing that stops students from reporting these cases at police station. So students do exercise their option if they wish to. In fact, they are advised if they wish to report the matter at the police station, they could do so, and we will support them every step of the way. And right through the prosecution stage, we will support them. Coming back to the issue of how students should be able to trust me, look, we are all human. We are all human. If anyone has never made a mistake, then I have great respect for that person. I made a mistake. It was unintentional, and I apologized. And I hope that students will acknowledge that and see other things that I am doing for this university and the extent to which I'm ready to put my body on the line for each one of them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You have the Vice-Chancellor of Rhodes University giving us the rundown in terms of what they will do to stop the scourge of the rape culture, as he called it, at Rhodes University. And remember that they're also reviewing that sexual policy that the university does have. Now, the demands from the students include increasing the number of staff that handle cases of sexual abuse and the establishment of a task team that will review the sexual harassment policy. As you know, also that the academic activity at the university has been cancelled until Monday. So we'll keep you updated on that and give you a rundown as to what is happening there. Now let's just take a look here. Rhodes University management they just held that press conference to report back on the meeting held with the students, and then they said they will also put forward a plan of action. Also last night, the students held a peaceful protest on the campus following a day of discussions with management. Another thing that the VC mentioned is that the list that was released of the perpetrators is unconstitutional, and it's a violation of the suspects' human rights, and that they will also take heed of that. That is one of the things that also came out of but that the management will seek to prosecute those responsible for the crime of rape. We'll keep you updated on the latest, but right now, let's go to Kendall Makhamate with your sports news.
Thank you very much, Elvis. Some heady news that we're dealing with this morning, isn't it? Now, good morning to all of you. This is the Sports with me on Newsroom. The Nedbank Cup is the only opportunity left for Orlando Pirates to lift some silverware this season. And it's the only ticket they've got to go and complete their unfinished business in CAF inter-club competitions. But to achieve that, Bucks will first have to overcome the in-form Mamelodi Sundowns in the quarter-final of the Nedbank Cup in Pretoria tomorrow evening.
Pirates had a slow start on the domestic front, but things have started taking shape. They faced the possibility of finishing outside the top 8 bracket in the ABSA Premiership before hitting top gear in recent months. Winning the last trophy on offer in domestic football is their next mission.
For me, on a personal note, I would like to finish my first season off as a head coach, having won a trophy. Obviously, if we do, we go back into Africa, which is where we all want to be, because we would obviously like to get back into Confederations Cup.
It's a big one, of course. You know, they beat us twice in the league, you know. So, but this cup game is a different one. So they've been playing well, but it's not going to be a walk in the park. They must expect us. We're going to fight.
On the other hand, Sundowns, who were a dominant force in the domestic league this season, want to lift their second trophy after their Telkom knockout triumph in December.
Pirates have their tails up now. Unlike us, we're coming from a low to go up. It's not easy. They've got their tails up. They've got fresh legs. If they play the way they've been playing, with speed, they will trouble us. But they did that in Loftus. They put a lot of speed on us. They troubled us. And we put the ball behind, if you remember the 2 goals.
We just need to put in effort, because they're going to double their effort knowing that we have played with them twice and we won. So we really need to come to the party on the weekend, because they're not just going to come and give it to us. We need to work for it, and it's a Nedbank. We don't want to be out.
Besides possible Nedbank Cup glory, Sundowns are just a few matches away from lifting the 2015-2016 ABSA Premiership title. Sfeso Ramara, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Staying abreast with all of the news that's currently topical, Sharks fans have something good to cheer this weekend. Young fly half Chris April kicked the men from Durban to a narrow 15-14 win over the Highlanders in Dunedin just a few minutes ago. Here are the highlights.
Vuwani with his first attempt of the match, and the kids will tell you 3-0, the home side in front. Plenty of distance as you'd expect, and the flags are up. Garth April with his 3 points for the Sharks, and we're level pegging 3 apiece here at Forsyth Park.
Are you intending to score tries or just to tick the scoreboard over?
April with the kick, and it's good again from him. 6-3 now, the Sharks in front. We know the Highlanders are a back short. There's the kick from April. Lead goes to 6. 9 points now to the Sharks. Just the 3 to the Highlanders. April with 3 penalties against this defensive mindset of the Sharks. And that one sneaks in. Andrew Burton sideline. Now Smith looking for numbers and a mismatch. Vuwani taken down. Tupia was there. Fernandez reaches. Gets there. Tie.
Sensational from Dennis.
Big moment for the 24-year-old from Cape Town. No problem at all. Garth April kicks the penalty and the Sharks have the lead. Calls it, and the game is done. The Sharks hold on for a 1-point win in Dunedin.
Well done to the Sharks for that 1-point win. Garth April doing all of the wonders. Young man from Cape Town doing it for the Sharks. That's where we leave it for this particular bulletin and for the week. We'll be back next week with our eldest president for more news analysis. Make sure that you come back to watch Newsroom. Have a good weekend.